You've been carrying stress like a shadow, following you everywhere. They told you peace comes when life finally calms down, when problems disappear, when everything is perfect. But if that were true, why do your thoughts still race at night? Why does sleep feel like a battle instead of a refuge? Why does your heart still feel heavy, even when nothing is wrong? The truth is, peace doesn't come from waiting for the world to change. It comes from changing how you see the world. And for centuries, the Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, have held the map. A map that doesn't promise a life without storms, but shows you how to remain steady the storm. Calm in chaos, strong in hardship, free in a world full of worries. Tonight, as you listen, something inside you will shift. The tension in your chest will begin to melt. The endless loop of worries will grow quiet. Your mind will feel lighter, like clouds parting to reveal a clear sky. And when you wake tomorrow, you will not just feel rested, you will feel renewed, clear, grounded, unshakable. This is not just background noise to fall asleep to. This is a journey, a training of the soul while your body rests, a chance to let go of everything that doesn't serve you and build a peace that cannot be broken. Are you ready? Then let's begin. You've just taken your first step into something rare, because most people spend their nights running from themselves. They bury their restlessness in screens, in noise, in distractions that numb but never heal. But you've chosen something different. You've chosen to step into an ancient practice, a way of seeing that doesn't push your stress aside, but reshapes it, transforms it into strength, clarity, and calm. And it begins here, in the most unexpected place, the bed. The bed is not just where the body rests, it's where the mind reveals itself. In the quiet, when the world goes silent, every thought you've been avoiding during the day surfaces. Worries about tomorrow, regrets from yesterday, conversations you replay over and over. They all crawl out when the lights go off. For some, that feels like punishment. But to the Stoics, this moment was a gift, because here is where the truth of your inner life shows itself. It's not the noise of the world that shakes you. It's the noise within. And if you can face that noise, if you can train yourself to be steady in the dark, then no storm outside will ever have the power to break you. Think about what happens when you lie down. Your body wants rest, but your thoughts rebel. They pull you into 1,000 directions. Some nights it feels like a battle you didn't choose. But here's the key. Instead of resisting this battle, step into it as a training ground. Treat every restless thought as a weight you can lift, every surge of worry as a chance to practice balance. The Stoics taught that life itself is training. Every obstacle is a gymnasium for the soul, and what better gym than the quiet moments when no one is watching, when it's only you and your mind. Self-awareness begins here. You notice the way your heart quickens when a thought of tomorrow's task enters your mind. You notice the clenching in your chest when regret whispers about something you said. You notice how your breath becomes shallow when you replay a scenario that never happened. And instead of turning away, you watch. You do not judge. You do not run. You observe. Because awareness is the first step to freedom. You cannot change what you refuse to face, but once you see it clearly, you are no longer its prisoner. Seneca once said, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today." How many nights have you lost to expectancy, lying awake rehearsing what hasn't happened yet? And how many mornings have you woken exhausted because you fought battles that only existed in your head. Tonight, you begin to turn that around. You recognize that the bed is not an escape, not a hiding place, but a mirror. It shows you what you carry. It reflects your attachments, your fears, your cravings. And that reflection is the invitation to grow. When you lie down, let the sheets remind you of a simple truth. You don't control the outcome of tomorrow. You don't control the judgments of others. You don't control whether life bends to your plans. What you do control is this: your response to the thoughts that rise in the quiet. Do you tighten, resist, and panic? Or do you breathe, release, and remain calm? Every night gives you a choice. Every night is practice. Think of the person who enters bed carrying anger. They replay arguments until their heart is burning again. They think of betrayal and feel it fresh as if it just happened. By dawn, their body may have rested, but their spirit wakes up exhausted, weaker than the night before. Now picture another person. They enter bed, and yes, the same thoughts rise, the same arguments, the same betrayals, the same fears. But instead of feeding them, they step back and say, "There it is again, the voice of my mind, but it is not me." They allow the storm to pass across their inner sky, and by the time morning arrives, they have rested in calm. Their body is restored, their mind is sharpened, and their soul is lighter. Both faced the same thoughts. One became a prisoner, the other became free. Self-awareness in the bed is not about silencing the mind by force. It's about training yourself to notice the rising tide and then choosing not to drown in it. This requires courage, because it means no longer hiding from the things that disturb you. But courage is exactly what the Stoics prized, because only by facing discomfort can you transform it. The bed becomes a field where you learn to stand firm against your own restless mind. There is another layer to this practice. The way you approach the bed at night sets the tone for your entire relationship with yourself. If you view the bed as just a place to collapse, you miss the opportunity. But if you view it as sacred ground, as the place where your mind reveals its truth, you begin to treat it differently. You prepare not just with blankets and pillows, but with intention. You slow your breathing, not to force sleep, but to meet yourself in honesty. You let go of performance, of roles, of identity, and return to the simple truth. You are a human being learning to live with wisdom. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself in the evenings, reminding his mind not to be carried away by vanity, anger, or fear. He used the stillness of night as a time to recalibrate, to see clearly what mattered and what did not. You can do the same. As you lie down, ask yourself gently, what truly matters right now? Will this worry matter in a year? Will this regret still hold power when I am gone? Most often, the answer dissolves the grip of the thought. In the stillness of the night, perspective returns. And so, the practice begins. You lie down and notice the restless chatter. You breathe and say, "This is my training." You let the thought come. You let it go. You remind yourself that nothing external can disturb your peace unless you grant it power. And as you repeat this night after night, something remarkable happens. Your mind learns. Just as muscles grow through training, your awareness strengthens. What once shook you no longer has the same force. Thoughts arise, but you remain steady. This steadiness follows you into the day. The person who trains in the bed to remain calm when thoughts attack is the same person who remains calm when life attacks. The practice at night becomes the strength in the morning. When someone insults you, you do not react with the same fire as before. When plans fall apart, you do not collapse. Because you've trained in the quiet hours, you carry that equanimity into the noise. The bed was not just for rest, it was for mastery. Now, let's stretch deeper. There is something profound about surrendering at night. When you close your eyes, you give yourself to uncertainty. You do not control where your mind goes. You do not control how long you'll sleep. You release control and trust the rhythm of nature. The Stoics believed this surrender mirrored the surrender to life itself. Just as you cannot force sleep, you cannot force the world. But you can align with it. You can flow with it. And this surrender is not weakness, it is wisdom. What if every night, instead of fearing restless thoughts, you welcome them as teachers? Each anxiety shows you where you still cling. Each regret shows you where you have not forgiven. Each fear shows you where you resist reality. The bed becomes not just a place of rest, but of revelation. You discover who you really are when there is nothing left to distract you. And with that discovery comes power. The power to reshape, to let go, to be free. So tonight, as you lay down, remember this: your bed is not an escape. It is the arena of the soul. It is where you face the truth of your mind and train yourself in calmness. Every restless thought is an invitation. Every worry is a chance to practice equanimity. And every breath is a reminder that peace is not something the world gives you. It is something you build within. And when you wake, you will not just have slept, you will have trained. And with that training, you will walk into tomorrow lighter, clearer, stronger. The practice of seeing the bed as a training ground for calm does not stand alone. It opens the door to something deeper, something that shapes not only how you meet the night, but how you carry yourself through every moment before it. Awareness shows you where your mind races and where your spirit clings. But awareness without discipline is like a lamp without oil. It flickers, it fades, it cannot sustain itself. To strengthen awareness, you need rhythm. You need a way of moving that brings harmony back to a restless body and a crowded mind. This is where the wisdom of Seneca speaks, the art of deliberate slowness. There is a reason people feel most anxious at night. The day moves at a frantic pace, and the mind absorbs that pace without noticing. By the time you reach the silence of evening, your thoughts are still sprinting. The body may stop, but the mind refuses to. Seneca understood that agitation comes not from what happens, but from the speed with which we process it. The faster we rush, the more scattered our thoughts become. The more scattered our thoughts, the harder it is to rest. Deliberate slowness is the antidote. It is not laziness, not carelessness, but a conscious decision to step out of the race and reclaim ownership of your pace. Think of the way you walk before bed. Most people rush through routines as if checking boxes, brushing teeth quickly, tossing clothes aside, collapsing under the covers. But every hurried motion carries tension. Seneca advised slowing every action. When you walk, place each step with care. Feel the weight of your body settle into the ground. Notice how your muscles shift as you move. This simple slowing of pace sends a message to the nervous system. You are safe. You are steady. There is no need to run anymore. Modern science now confirms what Stoics practiced long ago. Deliberate movement regulates the body, lowers cortisol, and calms the mind. Slowness in speech carries the same power. How often do we speak with urgency, even when urgency is not needed. The rapid pace of words often mirrors the rapid pace of thought. But when you deliberately slow your voice, you reshape not only how others hear you, but how you hear yourself. Speaking slowly before bed is not about dragging words, but about aligning speech with calm intention. Seneca warned against filling the night with empty chatter, reminding us that words should be used to bring clarity, not noise. A quiet, measured voice prepares the mind for rest more effectively than hours of distraction. Breathing holds the greatest weight in this practice. Breath is the thread between body and mind, and the rhythm of breath sets the rhythm of thought. Fast breath fuels fast thoughts. Shallow breath feeds shallow awareness. To practice deliberate slowness, extend the breath. Inhale deeply, not forcefully but steadily. Hold just long enough to feel the body soften. Exhale with patience, allowing tension to leave with the air. Each breath becomes a statement. I am not rushed. I am not carried away. I am in control of my state. Seneca described breath as the measure of life itself, urging his students to treat each inhalation as a reminder of presence. Deliberate slowness is not only about physical action, it extends to thought itself. The mind races because it leaps from one concern to another, never pausing long enough to see clearly. Slowness asks you to take one thought and hold it still, to see it in its full shape. Instead of chasing one worry after another, you take one and examine it. You ask, is this within my control? If not, why do I give it power? If yes, what small step can I take tomorrow? By slowing thought, you strip away exaggeration. Problems shrink back to their true size, and the agitation that once seemed overwhelming dissolves into clarity. Many people today speak of mindfulness, but Seneca's teaching carried a sharper edge. He knew slowness was not merely about awareness of the present, but about mastery over the instinct to rush. He criticized those who filled their evenings with noise, calling it a waste of the little time life grants us. To practice slowness before bed was for him a form of respect for the day, for the body, for the fleeting gift of time. By slowing, you stretch each moment into fullness. You experience more, not less. Consider the ritual of eating at night. Seneca practiced restraint, avoiding heavy indulgence that disturbed rest. But even in simple meals, he emphasized slowness. Chewing slowly, savoring each bite, letting the body receive nourishment without haste. Today, we know digestion and sleep are intimately tied. Rushing food strains the body and keeps the nervous system alert long after the meal is gone. A calm, slow meal is not only healthier, it becomes part of the night's preparation for peace. There is also slowness in how you let go of the day. Most people close the evening with screens, each flashing image forcing the brain to sprint. Seneca advised closing the day with reflection instead. To reflect slowly, not rushing to judge or condemn oneself, but carefully reviewing. Where did I act with virtue? Where did I fall short? Where can I improve tomorrow? This slowness in reflection prevents self-criticism from turning into torment. It transforms the review of the day into a teacher rather than a tyrant. Deliberate slowness is powerful because it breaks the illusion that you must move at the pace of the world. The world is fast, chaotic, noisy, but your mind is not obligated to follow. By choosing slowness, you reclaim sovereignty. You tell your mind, we will move at our own pace, not the world's. This act of rebellion against haste is deeply freeing. It anchors you in the truth that tranquility comes from within, not from controlling external chaos. Neuroscience now echoes Seneca's wisdom. Studies show that slowing breath activates the parasympathetic nervous system, reducing stress hormones and preparing the body for rest. Walking slowly lowers heart rate, balances blood pressure, and increases body awareness. Speaking slowly reduces mental strain, signaling to the brain that danger has passed. What Seneca taught as philosophy is now validated by science, yet its simplicity makes many overlook it. The art of deliberate slowness also prepares you for greater challenges in life. If you can slow down when the mind urges you to rush, you can resist panic in a crisis. If you can slow your breath at night, you can steady your nerves in the face of conflict. The practice before bed becomes training for the storm outside it. Seneca insisted that philosophy was not for words, but for life, and slowness was one of its most practical applications. Think of the last time you felt overwhelmed. Your body tensed, your thoughts spiraled, your breath raced. Now, picture responding differently, slowing your step, lowering your voice, stretching your breath. Suddenly the situation changes. What felt unbearable becomes manageable. What seemed urgent loses its grip. The same applies at night. When agitation rises, slowness disarms it. It does not eliminate problems, but it removes the panic that magnifies them. This art is also a form of compassion toward yourself. Rushing is often a symptom of self-punishment, a belief that you must always be doing, always achieving. Slowness says, I am enough as I am. I do not need to hurry to prove my worth. In this sense, slowing before bed is not only preparation for sleep, but also a healing of the deeper wound of restlessness. It teaches you that value is not in speed, but in presence. Over time, this practice reshapes the way you see life itself. You begin to notice beauty in what you once overlooked. The way light softens in the evening, the sound of your own breath steadying, the texture of silence itself. Slowness reveals details that rushing erases. Life expands not by adding more, but by experiencing each part fully. This expansion fills the soul with peace, making sleep no longer an escape, but a continuation of calm already established. There is also a moral lesson hidden in slowness. Many wrongs are committed in haste. Angry words, rash decisions, careless mistakes, all are children of rushing. By training yourself in slowness at night, you weaken the grip of impulse. You cultivate patience, which extends into every part of your life. The person who moves slowly before bed is less likely to be carried by anger the next day. They become measured, thoughtful, resilient. Seneca's slowness was not only about sleep, it was about character. As you practice, you begin to notice a shift. Nights no longer feel like battles. Even when thoughts arise, they arrive into a slower rhythm, unable to spin out of control. Sleep comes more naturally, not forced, but welcomed. And when sleep is delayed, you no longer suffer. You rest in slowness itself, allowing patience to replace frustration. This is the gift of Seneca's teaching. Not perfect sleep, but peace, whether sleep comes quickly or not. The art of deliberate slowness is deceptively simple. To walk with patience, to speak with care, to breathe with depth, to think with clarity, to reflect without haste. Practiced together, these steps transform nights of agitation into nights of training, and training into strength. Seneca's wisdom was clear. Life is short, time is precious, and rushing only wastes it. Slowness, by contrast, stretches each moment into its full richness, allowing you to live more fully even as you prepare to rest. When you carry this into your evenings, stress loses its edge, anxiety finds no foothold. You begin to see that peace is not the absence of thought, but the presence of rhythm. And when you wake in the morning, you rise not hurried, not scattered, but composed, steady, and ready to face the world with calm strength. Deliberate slowness is more than a technique. It is a way of life. It teaches you that speed is not control, that rushing is not power, that peace is not found in constant motion. Peace is found when you take each step, each breath, each word with intention. And as Seneca taught long ago, that intention builds the foundation for a life of resilience, clarity, and unshakable calm. The habit of deliberate slowness teaches the body to settle and the mind to soften. Yet even with calm movements and steady breath, there are nights when thoughts still cling like shadows. Slowness clears space, but the question remains: how do you keep that space from being filled again with the weight of daily troubles? The Stoics offered a practice that lifts the mind out of narrowness and places it into a vast horizon. They called it the view from above, a perspective that transforms what feels crushing into something light and small. When you look only from within your own skin, every worry appears enormous. A mistake at work feels like the end of your reputation. A disagreement with a friend feels like a fracture that cannot be repaired. Bills, deadlines, expectations, each presses with unbearable weight when seen close up. But when you shift perspective, when you rise above the narrow lens of your personal anxieties, something changes. What once felt like a mountain shrinks into a pebble. The view from above is a deliberate step away from obsession with the self and into awareness of scale, of proportion, of the vast world in which your struggles barely register. The practice is simple in form, yet profound in effect. At night, as you rest in stillness, bring to mind the image of yourself lying in your bed. Then lift that image higher. See the room around you, then higher still, the building, the street, the neighborhood. Continue lifting until the entire city lies beneath, and then the land, the rivers, the mountains. Soon your view reaches the curve of the earth, the continents, the oceans, the spinning globe itself. From this height, the noise of your own worries begins to dissolve. The tasks you feared, the conflicts you replayed, the regrets you carried, each becomes a detail too small to trouble you. What once consumed your night now feels light as dust. This practice was more than a thought experiment for the Stoics. It was training in detachment, a method of breaking the spell of ego. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that he was but a small part of the whole, a single thread in the vast fabric of the cosmos. By lifting his perspective beyond the palace walls, beyond Rome, beyond even the earth, he kept his mind from drowning in the small dramas of daily life. This exercise did not diminish his responsibilities. Instead, it gave him the strength to face them without being crushed. When you practice the view from above at night, you give your nervous system the same gift. The brain that once swirled with anxious detail suddenly recognizes how small those details are in the scope of time and space. Stress depends on exaggeration. Perspective dissolves exaggeration. A deadline feels unbearable until you see it against the backdrop of centuries. A harsh word from another feels devastating until you realize how quickly both the word and the speaker will pass. The view from above shrinks problems back to their true size. This is not escapism. It is not pretending problems do not exist. It is a training in proportion, a training in truth. The truth is that human life is short, fragile, and fleeting, and most of what consumes us at night will not matter in the long measure of time. Recognizing this does not make you careless, it makes you wise. You stop giving infinite weight to what is only temporary. You stop surrendering peace to matters that will dissolve whether you worry about them or not. There is also humility in this perspective. Looking down from above, you see not only your own smallness, but also the vast community of other lives, each with their own struggles, each convinced their problems are enormous. The driver who cut you off, the co-worker who annoyed you, the stranger who dismissed you, all are carrying burdens just as heavy in their own eyes. From above, judgment softens. Compassion replaces irritation. You begin to see that everyone is caught in the same human condition, fragile, temporary, longing for peace. Practicing this at night trains the mind for rest. Stress thrives on the belief that your worries are the center of the universe. By dissolving that belief, you create room for sleep. Thoughts may still come, but they no longer pierce so deeply. They no longer hook the heart with the same intensity. You release them into the vastness, and in doing so, you release yourself. Modern psychology echoes this Stoic exercise. Cognitive reframing, a therapy technique, teaches people to step outside their immediate perspective and view problems from a broader angle. Neuroscience shows that shifting mental perspective activates regions of the brain associated with calm regulation, reducing the grip of fear and rumination. The Stoics anticipated this by 2,000 years. Their method of rising above the self was not poetry, it was practical psychology, a tool to quiet the mind when it most needed rest. This exercise also teaches resilience. Once you have practiced shrinking worries at night, you carry that skill into the day. The meeting that once spiked your anxiety becomes only a passing moment in a long life. The insult that once burned loses its sting when you recall that both you and the speaker will soon be dust. Far from making you careless, this perspective frees you to act with clarity. You no longer waste energy on what does not matter. You conserve strength for what does. Some might ask, if everything is small in the grand view, does anything matter at all? The Stoics answered, yes, virtue matters. While possessions, status, and even life itself are fleeting, how you live while you are here carries meaning. Seeing your worries shrink does not free you from action, but frees you to act rightly. You no longer act from panic or obsession, but from reason and character. This is the paradox of the view from above. It makes everything small, yet it makes the pursuit of virtue larger than ever. The practice can be extended beyond the physical image of rising. You can also think in terms of time. Instead of lifting yourself upward, stretch yourself outward into the years. Think of today's worries 1 month from now, 1 year from now, 10 years from now. How many will still hold weight? How many will you barely remember? Seneca often reminded his readers that time washes everything away, and by placing current struggles into that stream, you rob them of their false importance. The mind that once clung to them learns to release. The effect of this practice before sleep is profound. Many people lose hours at night replaying conversations, replaying failures, replaying fears. Each loop convinces them their worries are too heavy to carry. But when you rise above or stretch into time, the loop breaks. The worry no longer convinces. It appears smaller, lighter, less urgent. You are free to rest because your mind no longer believes the lie that the world depends on your endless concern. It is worth noting that the view from above is not limited to personal peace. It also opens the soul to awe. When you lift yourself mentally above the earth, you cannot help but feel wonder at the scale of what exists. Stars scattered across infinite darkness, oceans without end, generations upon generations of human life, all passing in waves. To see yourself as part of this vast whole is to feel both small and connected. Small enough that your worries cannot crush you, connected enough that you never feel alone. This awe itself is medicine, quieting the ego and softening the restless mind. Every time you practice, you strengthen the habit. At first, it may feel abstract, like a picture drawn in the air, but over time, your mind learns to shift more easily. A problem arises, and without effort you rise above it, seeing its smallness. The practice at night becomes second nature by day, and with that habit comes an unshakable calm. The view from above is also a preparation for the ultimate truth. Life itself is short, and death comes for all. To rise above is to see yourself as a passing traveler, no different from billions who came before and billions who will follow. This recognition strips away arrogance, but also strips away fear. If life is brief, then let go of needless burdens. If death is certain, then rest in peace rather than wasting the gift of the night in worry. This clarity does not make you grim, it makes you free. As you practice tonight, lift your thoughts above your bed, your room, your city, your world. See the globe turning quietly in space. See your struggles as small details in a vast, flowing picture. Let that picture soothe you. Let it teach you that what disturbs you is not the problem itself, but the way you view it. And when you wake tomorrow, carry this vision with you. Problems will come, but their scale will be clear. Stress will knock, but you will not open the door. The view from above is not fantasy. It is clarity. It is the reminder that life is brief, that the world is vast, that your soul is stronger than the thoughts that trouble it. Practiced at night, it dissolves agitation and prepares the way for rest. Practiced in life, it dissolves obsession and prepares the way for freedom. And freedom, the Stoics would say, is the true measure of peace. The view from above teaches the mind that what feels heavy is in truth small, that what feels endless is in truth brief. Yet even with perspective, many still find themselves staring at the ceiling, restless in the dark, frustrated that sleep will not come as easily as they wish. It is here that another lesson must be faced, one that strikes at the heart of our modern obsession with perfection. The Stoics understood that peace is destroyed not by what happens, but by resistance to what happens. Nowhere is this more clear than in the anxiety surrounding sleep. People today are told they must achieve the perfect 8 hours, that without it, their health will crumble, their work will suffer, their life will shorten. This message, repeated endlessly, creates its own prison. You go to bed not seeking rest, but fearing the absence of it. Each passing minute without sleep tightens the chest. Thoughts race. If I don't fall asleep now, tomorrow will be ruined. This fear multiplies, and the very effort to force sleep makes it impossible. The Stoic answer is simple but radical. Accept imperfect sleep. Release the demand for a flawless night and rest in what comes. Seneca warned often against chaining happiness to conditions outside your control. Sleep is precisely such a condition. You can prepare the body, you can calm the mind, but you cannot order sleep to arrive on command. To make your peace dependent on something beyond control is to guarantee suffering. The wiser path is to let go of the illusion of control. When sleep comes, welcome it. When it delays, rest calmly in its absence. In both cases, you are free because your peace no longer hangs on an outcome. This shift is more powerful than it seems. Anxiety about sleep is a modern epidemic, and yet it is not the lack of sleep that causes the deepest harm. It is the worry about it. Studies in psychology confirm this. People who accept occasional poor nights function better than those who panic over them. Anxiety multiplies fatigue, while acceptance eases it. The Stoics anticipated this truth long ago. They saw that resistance creates double suffering. You suffer the thing itself and then suffer again from your reaction to it. A night of light sleep is one burden. Tormenting yourself about it is two. By accepting the first, you prevent the second. Think of how often you have survived on little rest. A sleepless night before an important event, a restless evening filled with worry, yet still you rose and managed the day. The mind convinces itself that less than perfect sleep is ruin, but experience proves otherwise. Marcus Aurelius, who led armies and ruled an empire, wrote in his Meditations that even when tired, the soul can still act with virtue. Fatigue cannot rob you of integrity, of reason, of kindness, unless you surrender those yourself. This is freedom, to know that your value and your peace are not measured by the number of hours you sleep. To accept imperfect sleep is also to learn humility. The body follows rhythms older than your will. To lie awake some nights is part of the human condition, a reminder that you are not master of every detail. The ego resists this truth, demanding control even over unconsciousness. But letting go is itself a discipline. It is practice in surrendering to nature. Epictetus taught that freedom is found in wanting things to happen as they happen, not as you will them. What could apply more directly than this? To align with the rhythm of sleep as it comes is to align with life itself. There is another benefit hidden in this practice. Nights of wakefulness can become opportunities rather than punishments. The silence of the world, the absence of distraction, offers a rare space for reflection. Seneca often used sleepless hours to think deeply, to write, to review his conscience. Instead of resenting the night, he turned it into a teacher. You too can use these hours not for torment, but for gentle reflection, not for racing thoughts, but for quiet review. Even if the body does not rest, the soul can. Modern science again affirms this ancient wisdom. Studies of insomnia show that acceptance-based approaches reduce distress far more effectively than attempts to force sleep. When people stop trying to control every aspect of their night and instead rest calmly even without sleep, the body often follows naturally. Forcing sleep is like squeezing water. It slips away. Allowing it, welcoming it without demand, is what finally lets it arrive. Consider the freedom this brings. Instead of dreading bedtime, fearing another failure to sleep perfectly, you enter it calmly. You say, "If I sleep well, I am grateful. If I sleep lightly, I will still be at peace." This attitude breaks the cycle of anxiety. The bed is no longer a battlefield, but a place of acceptance. The pressure lifts, and with it, the mind softens. Paradoxically, it is often when you stop demanding perfect rest that deeper rest comes. This acceptance extends beyond the night. In daily life, you will face countless things you cannot control. Weather, illness, aging, chance, all resist your will. Training yourself at night to release control over sleep prepares you to release control over these as well. Each restless night becomes practice in the Stoic art of living. Each acceptance strengthens the soul against larger challenges. The night, far from wasted, becomes a classroom. It is important to see that acceptance does not mean neglect. The Stoics never preached carelessness. They advised preparing well, living moderately, calming the mind, avoiding excess before bed. These preparations respect the body, but once preparations are done, the outcome must be left to nature. You do what is in your power, then surrender the rest. This balance is key. Effort without attachment, discipline without obsession. By releasing the demand for perfect sleep, you also release comparison. How often do people torment themselves by measuring against others? One brags of 9 hours, another of sleeping like a child, and you feel deficient in comparison. But what good is this comparison? Sleep is not a contest. Life is not measured in hours spent unconscious, but in how you live the hours you are awake. To free yourself from comparison is to step out of another trap of modern life. The beauty of this practice is how it transforms even weakness into strength. When you wake tired, you learn patience. When you feel dull, you learn perseverance. When you lack energy, you learn to focus on essentials. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that even when weary, he could still act with justice, courage, moderation, and wisdom. Tiredness may slow the body, but it cannot corrupt the soul. Each imperfect night becomes another exercise in resilience. There is also a gentleness in this practice, a kindness toward yourself. The mind that berates itself for not sleeping enough turns the night into cruelty. But the mind that accepts, that rests in what comes, practices compassion. You learn to treat yourself as you would a friend, patiently, kindly, without judgment. This compassion ripples outward. A person at peace with their own imperfections is more patient with the imperfections of others. Nights of acceptance become seeds of kindness. Over time, this practice rewires your relationship with sleep itself. The bed is no longer a stage for performance, where you must meet the quota of hours. It becomes a place of rest in the truest sense. Rest from demands, rest from striving, rest from the tyranny of perfection. Some nights will bring deep slumber, others will not, but in both you will be free. You will rise not always refreshed in body, but always strengthened in spirit. To live this way is to embody the Stoic ideal, not seeking to control what is beyond control, not surrendering peace to outcomes, but resting firmly in what is within. You cannot dictate the length of your sleep, but you can dictate your response to it. You can let go of frustration, release comparison, and embrace each night as it comes. The gift of this lesson is liberation. Liberation from fear of lost hours, from chains of perfection, from self-inflicted torment. It replaces all of this with calm acceptance, with humility, with resilience. The night no longer owns you. Whether sleep comes quickly, slowly, or not at all, your peace remains untouched. And when peace remains untouched, even a restless night becomes a night well spent, because you have practiced the art of acceptance, and through that art you have found freedom. Accepting imperfect sleep loosens the grip of frustration, but peace does not depend only on surrender. What often prevents rest is not the absence of sleep itself, but the weight of our cravings carried into the night. The Stoics warned that desire, left unchecked, turns even comfort into a chain. It is not only great wealth or power that enslaves us. Small cravings can disturb the soul just as deeply. The glow of a screen, the pull of late indulgence, the endless search for softness, all these bind the mind and agitate the body. To rest naturally, the spirit must be trained in discipline, not by denial for its own sake, but by learning to need less. Desire has always been one of the strongest forces in human life. During the day, it drives ambition, greed, competition. At night, it disguises itself in subtler forms, yet its power remains. The urge to scroll through news or messages to keep the mind fed with constant novelty is one such form. The screen seems harmless, yet it stirs the brain into alertness, floods the senses with light, and fills the mind with new worries just before rest. What feels like a small pleasure is in truth a theft of calm. The Stoic path requires recognition of this theft and the courage to step away. To resist the craving for stimulation is not deprivation. It is reclaiming mastery over your own attention. Late food and drink carry the same trap. Seneca often wrote about moderation, noting how indulgence weakens not only the body, but also the mind. Heavy meals, taken late, demand energy to digest, keeping the body restless and the mind unsettled. Wine and sweets may soothe in the moment, but they chain you to cycles of craving and discomfort. The Stoic does not forbid pleasure, but questions its cost. What is the price of this indulgence? Does it strengthen or weaken the soul? Each night this question becomes clear. The discipline of desire is not punishment, but freedom from unnecessary burdens. Excess comfort is another hidden snare. Modern life offers endless tools for convenience. Pillows upon pillows, perfectly controlled temperatures, endless adjustments of light and sound. Yet the more we demand, the less we tolerate. The person who needs perfect silence cannot rest when a small noise appears. The one who needs perfect softness cannot relax without it. Comfort becomes a prison when it turns into dependence. The Stoic approach is balance. Enough comfort to honor the body, but not so much that the soul forgets resilience. To lie on a bed that is simple, to wrap oneself without demanding perfection, is to teach the body to find peace in any condition. Epictetus taught that true wealth is needing little. At night, this truth reveals itself with sharp clarity. The fewer cravings you bring into bed, the easier rest comes. To discipline desire is not to live in hardship, but to live free of need. When the phone is set aside, when the meal is light, when comfort is enough but not excessive, the mind no longer waits on conditions. Sleep arrives naturally because nothing obstructs it. The body is calm, the senses are quiet, the soul is unburdened. There is also a deeper meaning in this discipline. Every act of restraint is training for life. To resist a screen at night is to train attention for the day. To resist indulgence is to strengthen moderation in all things. To resist excessive comfort is to build resilience against hardship. The night becomes not only preparation for sleep, but preparation for virtue. The bed turns into a classroom of desire, where each craving resisted becomes a lesson in freedom. Modern research again affirms the wisdom of the ancients. Blue light delays natural rhythms, heavy meals disrupt hormones, excess comfort lowers tolerance for change. Each craving gratified creates dependency, while restraint builds adaptability. Neuroscience shows that practicing self-control in small things strengthens neural pathways that support greater self-control in larger matters. In this sense, saying no to a small craving at night may prepare you to face far greater temptations with strength. The beauty of this practice is that it creates a harmony between body and mind. Cravings scatter energy outward, demanding constant satisfaction. Discipline gathers energy inward, conserving it for rest and renewal. When desire no longer pulls in 100 directions, the self becomes whole, centered, and calm. This wholeness is the true foundation of peace. The Stoics were not ascetics for the sake of suffering. They valued joy, but joy found in mastery rather than indulgence. At night, this joy is quiet but profound, the joy of knowing you are not owned by your cravings. To lay down without the need for noise, for indulgence, for excess, is to taste freedom. The person who requires little is the person who rests easiest, for nothing is missing. Resisting cravings at night also guards against regret. How many mornings begin with guilt? Too much food, too much drink, too many hours wasted on glowing screens. Each of these regrets adds weight to the day before it even begins. Discipline removes this weight. To wake without regret is to begin the day with lightness, with strength. The discipline of desire at night is therefore a gift to the self of tomorrow. There is also wisdom in moderation. The Stoics avoided extremes, neither indulgence nor denial, but balance. To deny every comfort is to weaken the body. To indulge every craving is to weaken the soul. The middle path is strength. At night, this means allowing enough comfort for the body to rest, enough nourishment to sustain, but never so much that peace becomes dependent on it. This balance keeps the soul steady in all conditions, whether in wealth or poverty, in silence or noise, in luxury or simplicity. Desire is endless when fed, but quiet when disciplined. To practice this each night is to cut the chains of restlessness. You are no longer a servant to the glow of devices, no longer a prisoner of late indulgence, no longer fragile in the face of small discomforts. You are free, and that freedom is what allows true rest. By mastering desire at night, you also prepare yourself for mastery in life. The person who can set aside what is unnecessary before sleep can set aside anger, greed, and fear in the daylight. The same discipline that limits cravings at night limits destructive impulses by day. Peace is not found in satisfying every urge, but in knowing you do not need to. This is the lesson the Stoics carried, and it is the lesson you practice when you let the night be simple, uncluttered, disciplined. When this becomes habit, nights take on a different quality. Sleep is no longer delayed by restless appetite. The body feels lighter, the mind clearer, the soul unburdened. The discipline of desire does not make life smaller, it makes peace larger. For when you need less, you are free to rest more deeply, and when you rest deeply, you are free to live more fully. And so the night becomes not a place of indulgence, but of training, not a place of craving, but of release. Each evening you step into the discipline of desire. You build strength, clarity, and freedom. And that freedom, the Stoics would say, is the truest form of rest. The discipline of desire quiets cravings and makes space for natural rest. Yet even when the body is free of excess, the night can still bring unease. The silence of darkness has a way of amplifying fears that the daylight keeps hidden. Anxieties slip in, not through indulgence, but through the mind's own habit of creating dangers out of shadows. Here, the Stoic lesson turns from restraint to courage. The night is not only a time for letting go, it is a place to train bravery. To lie in the dark with anxieties pressing against you is not failure, but invitation, the invitation to strengthen the soul by practicing courage when it feels most vulnerable. Darkness intensifies perception. Every sound seems sharper, every uncertainty heavier, every thought louder. Many turn away, trying to block or fight what rises. Yet, resistance fuels fear. The Stoics taught that fear loses power when faced directly. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the refusal to run from it. In the quiet of the night, anxieties surface because there is no distraction to hide them. To meet them, there is to meet yourself, honestly, without escape. Seneca often reminded his readers that fortune cannot be trusted, that fear arises from attachment to what might be lost. At night, these attachments reveal themselves most clearly. Thoughts of losing health, wealth, reputation, or relationships circle endlessly. The common response is dread, but the Stoic response is training. By confronting these anxieties with calm, you weaken their grip. Each fear, met without panic, is one less chain binding the soul. The practice of nighttime courage begins with acceptance. Fear will come. Anxieties will whisper. Pretending otherwise only deepens their sting. Instead, expect them, welcome them as sparring partners. Just as a soldier trains with weights and drills before battle, the philosopher trains with nightly anxieties before the trials of the day. When fear arises in the dark, remind yourself, this is my chance to strengthen bravery. This is my arena. Breath becomes the weapon in this arena. Fear quickens the pulse, tightens the chest, makes air shallow. To meet it with courage is to steady breath deliberately. Each slow exhale signals to the body that danger is not present, that fear is a phantom of thought. The body calms and the mind follows. Courage is built not by eliminating fear instantly, but by choosing calm again and again, even while fear lingers. The repetition strengthens resilience. Marcus Aurelius often wrote about the shortness of life, reminding himself that death is not to be feared, but accepted. At night, death anxiety often surfaces most strongly. Many lie awake, fearing illness, accident, or the simple fact of mortality. To practice courage here is to bring perspective. Death is part of nature, and fearing it does not change its arrival. To accept it with dignity is the highest act of bravery. The night offers the chance to rehearse this acceptance, to train the soul not in panic, but in readiness. There is also the courage of releasing control. Many anxieties at night come from what-if thinking. What if tomorrow goes wrong? What if I fail? What if disaster strikes? Each of these thoughts grows because the mind clings to control it does not have. Courage is the willingness to face uncertainty without collapse. Epictetus taught that we own only our choices, never the outcomes. At night, you can practice this truth by recognizing that tomorrow is not yours to command. Your courage lies in meeting it when it comes, not in conquering it before it arrives. The night also reveals fears rooted in memory. Past mistakes, regrets, or traumas often resurface when the mind is unguarded. Courage here is not denial, but endurance. To face the pain of memory without letting it define you is an act of strength. The Stoics did not promise that pain would vanish, only that the soul can remain steady in the midst of it. Endurance at night becomes endurance by day. Each time you allow painful thoughts to rise and pass without surrendering to them, you add another layer of armor to the soul. This training does not end with inner fears. Even external anxieties can be transformed. The sound of the wind, the creak of the house, the unfamiliar noise outside, each of these has triggered human fear since ancient times. To meet them with calm, reminding yourself that most fears are exaggerations of the mind, is to practice rational courage. Seneca noted that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. The night makes this clear. By meeting external triggers with reason instead of panic, you practice bravery in its most practical form. Modern psychology echoes this Stoic wisdom. Exposure therapy, a treatment for fear, works by gradually facing what frightens you until it loses power. Nighttime courage training is a natural form of exposure. Each time you lie awake and allow anxiety to be present without fleeing, you teach your nervous system that fear is survivable. Over time, the intensity diminishes. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. Courage has been built in small, consistent steps. There is also moral courage in the night. Not all anxieties come from imagined dangers. Some arise from conscience. A harsh word spoken, a duty avoided, a kindness withheld. These memories often visit when the world is silent. The easy response is guilt, but guilt without correction weakens the soul. Courage is to face these truths honestly, to acknowledge fault, and to commit quietly to better action tomorrow. The night becomes not only training in fear, but in integrity. This practice also builds compassion. When you learn to sit with your own anxieties without judgment, you become gentler toward the fears of others. You see that fear is universal, that every person lies awake at times with their own silent battles. Courage then becomes not only personal, but relational. You can meet others' fears with understanding rather than dismissal. Nighttime bravery grows into daylight kindness. The benefit of this training is lasting freedom. When you no longer dread anxieties at night, you no longer dread them by day. Fear loses its teeth. The same thoughts that once robbed you of peace now become reminders of your strength. You begin to view difficulties not as enemies, but as exercises. This shift is profound. Life still brings trials, but your relationship to them is transformed. You do not beg for them to disappear. You meet them as opportunities to practice virtue. Over time, the habit deepens. You no longer enter night with dread, fearing what thoughts may rise. You enter with readiness, knowing that whatever comes is part of your training. The night loses its power to intimidate. Anxiety becomes less a curse than a teacher, and sleep, when it arrives, feels not only like rest, but like a reward earned through courage. The Stoics valued courage as one of the 4 cardinal virtues, equal with wisdom, justice, and moderation. Practicing it at night ensures that it is not merely a word, but a lived reality. Each anxious thought met with calm is a victory. Each fear endured without collapse is progress. These victories may be unseen, but they accumulate, building a soul unshakable by noise or shadow. When you rise in the morning after such training, the strength carries forward. Challenges appear, but you are no longer surprised by them. You have already rehearsed in the night. You have faced fear in its most intimate form and remained steady. Daylight troubles cannot undo what was forged in darkness. The night, then, is not an enemy to resist, but a crucible to embrace. Anxieties will come, but each is a chance to practice bravery. By choosing to meet them instead of fleeing, you train the soul in the most essential skill of all, courage. And courage, once built, does not fade with the dawn. It walks with you into every part of life. The practice of courage at night turns fear into a teacher and anxiety into an ally. But there is another weight that often keeps the mind restless long after the lights go out. It is not fear of what may come, but the sting of what has already happened. words spoken by others, betrayals that cut deep, slights that were never acknowledged. These linger like embers, burning long after the fire has died. Courage steadies the soul against fear, but bitterness corrodes it from within. The Stoics knew that peace requires more than bravery. It requires forgiveness, not the shallow kind spoken through clenched teeth, but the quiet release of resentment in the mind before sleep. Resentment is heavy. It clings to the chest, replaying scenes where you were wronged, whispering arguments you might have won, fueling fantasies of vindication. But none of this heals. Each repetition chains you further to the very person or event that hurt you. The injury happens once, but the bitterness renews it 100 times. Seneca wrote that anger is a temporary madness, and when carried into the night, it disturbs both mind and body. To let it go is not weakness but wisdom, for the one who forgives sleeps in freedom, while the one who clings to anger tosses in chains. Forgiveness, in Stoic practice, is not about excusing injustice or forgetting pain. It is about freeing the mind from what it cannot control. You cannot control whether another has wronged you. You cannot control whether they will apologize. You cannot control whether the world will deliver justice in your time. But you can control your response. You can release your hold on the bitterness, not for their sake, but for your own. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that people act from ignorance, from weakness, from fear, and that to expect perfection from them is to deny their humanity. To forgive is to accept this truth and refuse to let their flaws poison your peace. The ritual of forgiveness before sleep is a deliberate act. As you lie in bed, bring to mind those who have troubled you. See their faces, recall their actions, feel the sting rise again. Then breathe and say, "They too are human. They too are flawed. They too are struggling with burdens unseen. I release them." This simple statement loosens the knot inside. It does not erase memory, but it removes its power to disturb. Each night you repeat this, bitterness loses ground and calm expands. This practice is not easy. The mind resists. It insists that holding anger protects you, that bitterness guards against future harm. But in truth, it does the opposite. Anger kept alive harms you more than the one who wronged you. It robs your sleep, weakens your health, distorts your judgment. Forgiveness restores clarity. It allows you to rest without carrying the weight of another's mistakes. In this sense, forgiveness is self-preservation. Psychology confirms what the Stoics taught. Studies show that forgiving reduces stress, lowers blood pressure, and improves sleep quality. Bitterness, by contrast, fuels chronic stress and keeps the nervous system in a state of alertness, long after the threat is gone. To forgive at night is not sentimental, it is practical. It prepares both body and mind for the renewal of rest. The ritual also strengthens character. Each act of forgiveness builds patience, humility, and compassion. You begin to see others not as enemies, but as fellow travelers, stumbling as you stumble, failing as you fail. This does not mean tolerating abuse or denying justice. It means refusing to let another's flaws turn you bitter. You protect your own peace by releasing what is not yours to hold. There is also power in remembering your own wrongs. How many times have you hurt others, knowingly or not? How many times have you hoped for mercy, for understanding, for forgiveness? To recall this before sleep humbles the spirit. It softens the demand for perfection in others. It reminds you that just as you wish to be forgiven, you must also forgive. Seneca wrote that no man is so perfect as to be without fault, and no one so wicked as to be beyond change. Holding this truth, forgiveness flows more easily. The ritual of forgiveness also clears space for gratitude. When bitterness is released, the mind no longer clings to darkness. It becomes free to notice what is good, what is kind, what is beautiful. Forgiveness and gratitude are partners. One removes the weight, the other fills the void with light. To end the night with both is to prepare the soul not only for rest, but for joy. Some nights, forgiveness will feel complete. Other nights, the bitterness may return even after release. This is natural. Forgiveness is not a single act, but a discipline. Each repetition weakens resentment until it loses its hold entirely. Like training a muscle, it grows stronger with practice. Over weeks and months, you notice a shift. The faces that once haunted you no longer disturb your rest. Their power fades, and your peace deepens. This discipline has lasting effects. The person who forgives nightly does not wake carrying yesterday's anger. They meet the new day lighter, calmer, freer. Conflicts still arise, but they do not linger. Relationships mend more easily, or if they do not, the mind is not consumed. You learn to carry peace within you, regardless of the storms around you. The Stoics valued forgiveness not as charity, but as justice to oneself. To let bitterness rule is to hand your freedom to another. To forgive is to reclaim it. Each night, when you excuse the wrongs of others in your mind, you declare that your peace belongs to you alone. No insult, no betrayal, no cruelty can take it without your consent. This is true strength, not the power to retaliate, but the power to remain unshaken. When practiced consistently, this ritual becomes as natural as breathing. The moment bitterness rises, the mind responds with release. The habit formed at night extends into the day. You meet offenses with patience, slights with perspective, insults with calm. You no longer waste energy on resentment. That energy is freed for living, for creating, for loving. Forgiveness ceases to be a struggle and becomes a way of being. And so the night becomes not a place of replaying grievances, but of releasing them. You close each day by setting down its burdens, refusing to carry them into tomorrow. The mind rests light, the body follows, and sleep arrives not as escape, but as renewal. The Stoic ritual of forgiveness is not weakness, but the highest form of strength, for it frees the soul from chains no one else can break. Forgiveness loosens the knots of bitterness and sets the heart free. But freedom is fragile if it depends only on harmony with others. Even when anger is released and peace with people is restored, life itself remains uncertain. Health shifts, possessions disappear, relationships change, and the body is bound by time. The Stoics, knowing how sudden loss can shatter the unprepared soul, practiced a discipline that seems harsh at first, but offers the deepest form of strength: voluntary reflection on loss. This was not dwelling morbidly on tragedy, but rehearsing acceptance before misfortune arrives, so that when change comes, as it always will, the mind meets it with calm rather than despair. To sit quietly at night and consider absence is a radical act in a culture that teaches constant grasping. Most spend their days building walls of possessions, achievements, and relationships, convinced these will hold forever. Yet the night whispers truth. All is passing. Wealth shifts, youth fades, loved ones depart, the body itself weakens. Reflection on loss is not meant to sadden, but to prepare, to strip illusions that comfort without protecting. By rehearsing loss in thought, you build the muscle of acceptance, readying the soul for the moment when thought becomes reality. Seneca wrote often of this practice, reminding himself to greet each day as if it might be his last, to kiss his loved ones with the awareness that fate might separate them tomorrow. Far from making his love weaker, this reflection made it sharper. To remember that nothing is guaranteed is to cherish what you hold more deeply while you have it. Reflection on loss does not dull affection. It intensifies gratitude. Instead of clinging with fear, you love with awareness. Instead of taking for granted, you treasure. This discipline also weakens fear. Much of human anxiety comes from the terror of losing what feels essential: status, money, health, companionship. These fears grow because they are never examined directly. The mind avoids them, treating loss as unthinkable. But avoidance gives fear power. By bringing these possibilities to mind willingly, you rob them of their sting. The thought becomes familiar. The fear loses its edge. And when reality brings change, the shock is lessened. Reflection trains you to meet life not with trembling, but with steady acceptance. There is also liberation in this practice. Possessions often own their owners. The thought of losing them enslaves, leading to endless worry about theft, damage, or decline. By imagining life without them, you see that your soul remains intact even in their absence. You recognize that peace does not depend on objects, that happiness can exist without the clutter of ownership. The more often you reflect on this, the freer you become in daily life. You enjoy what you have without chains of dependency. Gratitude replaces greed. The same applies to health. Many live in quiet fear of illness, aging, or weakness. Reflection turns fear into preparation. By picturing yourself with less strength, less ability, you see that dignity remains possible, that courage and wisdom are untouched by physical decline. Epictetus, himself lame from youth, taught that the body may be hindered, but the soul remains free. Reflecting on loss of health helps you shift value from what fades to what endures. You invest less in vanity, more in character. Relationships, too, are illuminated by this discipline. Love easily becomes possession, and possession breeds fear of loss. Reflection softens this grip. By considering life without those you love, you are reminded that their presence is a gift, not a guarantee. You love them more fully in the present, not as extensions of yourself, but as companions you are blessed to walk with for however long fate allows. When separation does come, grief still cuts, but it does not destroy, because the heart has rehearsed acceptance. Modern psychology echoes these Stoic insights. Studies on gratitude and resilience show that reflecting on impermanence heightens appreciation and reduces shock when change occurs. Practices like negative visualization, derived from Stoic thought, are now used to treat anxiety and build emotional strength. Neuroscience confirms that when people voluntarily face feared scenarios in thought, their stress response decreases when those scenarios arise in reality. The Stoics, without laboratories, discovered what science now proves. Reflection on loss also sharpens values. When you imagine life stripped of possessions, status, or even health, you ask yourself, what remains that cannot be taken? The answer points you to virtue, justice, wisdom, courage, moderation. These cannot be stolen, cannot decay, cannot be lost except by your own choice. By rehearsing loss, you see more clearly where to root your identity. Not in wealth, not in strength, not even in others, but in the quality of your soul. This discipline, practiced nightly, transforms your relationship with time. You stop wasting days in trivial pursuits, knowing each day may be the last. You stop deferring joy to some distant future, knowing the future is never promised. You start to live fully now, not because you deny tomorrow, but because you no longer cling to it. Reflection on loss creates urgency without panic, depth without despair. It teaches you that life is precious because it is fleeting. The practice is simple. As you lie down, bring to mind what you hold most dear. Then ask, what if it were gone? What if this were my last night to see, to touch, to speak? Let the thought settle, not with terror, but with calm curiosity. Feel the pang, then remind yourself, loss is part of nature. All that begins must end. My peace is not found in denying this, but in embracing it. With this thought, gratitude deepens, fear weakens, and rest comes more easily. At first, this reflection may feel harsh, but over time, it becomes a source of strength. You wake cherishing more, fearing less. You face change without collapse. You walk lighter, unburdened by the illusion that life owes you permanence. Reflection on loss does not take joy away, it multiplies it, because joy is no longer hidden beneath fear. And when sleep comes after such reflection, it is not the sleep of escape, but of acceptance. You rest knowing that whatever tomorrow brings, gain or loss, presence or absence, you have trained your soul to meet it. In this way, the night becomes not a rehearsal for despair, but for freedom. Each voluntary meditation on loss builds the unshakable peace that comes only from aligning with the truth of existence, that everything changes, that nothing is guaranteed, and that the soul remains free through it all. Reflecting on loss softens the heart and builds resilience against change. But even with this strength, peace at night is not sustained by thought alone. The way you prepare yourself physically and mentally before sleep shapes the quality of your rest and the clarity of your soul. The Stoics warned against both indulgence and denial, for either extreme unsettles the spirit. Luxury feeds dependency and weakness, while deprivation fuels restlessness and resentment. What they advised instead was the golden mean, moderation. When applied to nightly rituals, moderation becomes the key that unlocks balance. Not too much, not too little, just enough to steady the body and calm the mind without enslaving either. The habits leading into sleep are often overlooked, yet they set the tone for everything that follows. Too much indulgence before bed, heavy meals, intoxicating drink, constant stimulation keeps the body strained and the mind alert when they should be winding down. On the other hand, harsh discipline that strips away every comfort in pursuit of toughness brings agitation of a different kind. True peace lies between these poles. Moderation honors the body without pampering it, disciplines the mind without punishing it. This harmony prepares the soul to meet the night with calm dignity. Seneca often criticized both those who drowned themselves in pleasure and those who inflicted needless suffering on themselves, pointing out that both are slaves, one to indulgence, the other to pride. He urged simplicity without severity, comfort without dependency. A nightly ritual in this spirit avoids excess, but also avoids rigidity. It is the warm bath that soothes without becoming addiction, the light meal that nourishes without overburdening, the quiet reflection that settles without spiraling. Moderation turns the night into a sanctuary rather than a battleground. Food and drink offer a clear example. Too much rich food before bed disturbs rest, yet fasting to the point of hunger does the same. The golden mean is a simple, balanced meal taken earlier, enough to satisfy but not weigh down. Seneca himself often ate sparingly, not from disdain for food, but from respect for the body's needs. In modern terms, we know digestion affects sleep cycles. Heavy indulgence disrupts them, while moderate nourishment supports them. Moderation here is not just philosophy, but biology. The same principle applies to comfort. Excessive softness, layers of pillows, perfectly controlled temperatures, makes the body fragile, unable to tolerate the smallest change. Harsh deprivation, sleeping on bare boards, shivering without covering, creates agitation rather than peace. The middle path is the simple bed, enough comfort to allow rest, not so much that dependency forms. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that true strength comes from needing little, but he also did not reject all comforts. To sleep well, one must prepare the body with respect, not indulgence, not contempt. Rituals of stimulation must also be balanced. The world offers endless distractions in the form of screens, conversations, and noise. Too much stimulation excites the mind, keeping it racing when silence is needed. Yet complete withdrawal into isolation can feel harsh, producing loneliness or restlessness. Moderation is found in selective winding down, perhaps a brief reading of wisdom, perhaps a few quiet moments of conversation, but always chosen with intention rather than compulsion. The goal is to calm, not to numb, to steady, not to excite. Even reflection itself requires moderation. To review the day with honesty is valuable, but to dwell endlessly on mistakes breeds self-criticism rather than growth. The Stoics advised nightly examination, but warned against turning it into torment. The golden mean here is reflection that acknowledges both virtue and error, followed by resolution, not obsession. This balanced review closes the day with clarity, not with regret or arrogance. Modern psychology supports this principle of moderation. Sleep hygiene research shows that consistency, balance, and intention in nightly routines improve rest far more than extreme approaches. Overindulgence leads to poor sleep quality, while harsh self-denial often leads to burnout and eventual indulgence. The body and mind thrive when treated with steady respect, not with extremes. The Stoics intuited this truth long before science measured it. Practicing moderation at night also trains the character for the day. Extremes are often born of emotion: greed, fear, pride, insecurity. By deliberately choosing the middle way each night, you practice self-command. You remind yourself that enough is truly enough. This attitude carries into daily life, making you less swayed by consumerism, less controlled by cravings, less vulnerable to fear of missing out. Moderation builds independence, for you no longer rely on extremes to feel alive. Moderation also preserves gratitude. When you indulge excessively, you stop noticing small blessings. When you deprive yourself needlessly, you resent what you lack. But when you live with balance, you savor what you have. A warm blanket, a quiet moment, a breath of calm air before sleep. These become sources of contentment because you are not dulled by excess or distracted by longing. Gratitude and moderation reinforce each other, feeding peace. In practice, moderation requires awareness. Each night you must ask, is this choice serving rest or serving compulsion? Do I eat to nourish or to escape? Do I use comfort to support or to shield myself from resilience? Do I reflect to grow or to indulge in self-pity? By asking these questions, you align action with intention. Moderation is not a rigid formula, but a living balance, adjusted with wisdom each night. The deeper gift of moderation is freedom. When you avoid extremes, you are no longer tossed back and forth between indulgence and denial. You are steady, grounded, centered. Life may bring luxury, it may bring hardship, but you carry the same peace in both. Nightly rituals become training for this steadiness. You prove to yourself, again and again, that peace does not depend on abundance or lack, but on the measured soul that knows when enough is enough. As this practice deepens, nights become predictable in the best sense. Not monotonous, but consistent, simple, reliable. The mind and body come to associate evening with calm, not chaos. Rest flows more easily because the environment and the spirit are aligned. Sleep becomes not an accident, but a natural outcome of balance. The Stoics prized moderation because it reflected the harmony of nature itself. Nature does not overindulge or deprive. It follows rhythms of balance, day and night, growth and decay, abundance and scarcity. To live in moderation is to live in step with this order. Nightly rituals practiced in balance echo this cosmic rhythm, aligning the soul with the larger harmony of the world. When you carry this discipline forward, you discover that moderation is not dull, but liberating. It removes the chaos of extremes and leaves space for calm, clarity, and gratitude. The night becomes not a stage for indulgence or denial, but a sanctuary of balance. And balance, once cultivated, follows you into every part of life, steadying you against the tides of fortune. Thus, each evening, you prepare not only for sleep, but for life itself. By avoiding excess and rejecting deprivation, by choosing the golden mean, you create a nightly rhythm of peace. And from that peace grows strength, resilience, and freedom, the gifts that moderation alone can bring. Moderation in nightly rituals brings balance to the body and clarity to the mind. But even with this harmony established, there is something more that deepens rest and expands the spirit. The Stoics turned often to the vastness above them, not for distraction, but for wisdom. For them, the night sky was more than beauty. It was a living text, a reminder of order greater than human chaos, a canvas on which the soul could find perspective. To lift your eyes to the stars, or to rest in the depth of darkness, is to step out of the narrow chamber of personal worry and into the vast rhythm of the cosmos. The stars have always spoken to human beings. Long before books, long before philosophy was written on paper, the heavens were the first text. They told of cycles, of constancy, of harmony. They reminded the ancients that while human life rose and fell, the stars endured, steady and silent. For the Stoics, this was not only a comfort, but a lesson. To contemplate the sky at night was to remember your place within the whole, to see yourself not as the center of existence, but as a small part of an ordered universe. This shift of perspective brought humility, awe, and peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote often of looking upward to recall the vastness of nature. He reminded himself that his worries, his empire, his very life were smaller than a speck compared to the infinite expanse. This thought freed him from the weight of trivial concerns. At night, the stars dissolved the illusion of importance that burdens the mind. To see them is to be reminded that what feels overwhelming is in truth a detail in a vast design. The sky humbles the ego and relieves the restless heart. Darkness itself carries the same lesson. For many, darkness breeds unease. Yet for the Stoics, The absence of light was not emptiness, but fullness, a reminder of the unseen order that holds the world together. In the still blackness, the mind learns silence. It begins to understand that not everything must be visible to be real. The very structure of the cosmos is hidden, yet its harmony supports all things. To rest in darkness with trust is to practice alignment with this unseen order. Contemplating the night sky also builds endurance against fear. Human beings often exaggerate their own troubles because they view them in isolation. But when set against the expanse of stars, troubles shrink. A missed opportunity, a harsh word, a lost possession. How can these weigh the soul when entire galaxies burn and die in silence above? The sky teaches scale. It reminds the soul that life is brief, that pain is temporary, and that what truly matters is not clinging to what fades, but living with virtue while you can. There is also nourishment in awe itself. To look at the stars is to feel wonder, and wonder softens anxiety. Modern science confirms this. Awe reduces stress, increases generosity, and quiets self-obsession. The Stoics experienced this without needing research. They knew that awe is medicine for the restless spirit. At night, when worries rise, turning your attention outward to the stars lifts you from narrowness into vastness, dissolving the tight grip of fear. This practice also fosters gratitude. When you contemplate the order of the cosmos, you see that life, fragile as it is still a gift. The chance to breathe, to think, to love, to exist at all in the midst of infinite vastness is extraordinary. Seneca often reminded himself that each day of life is undeserved grace, not entitlement. The stars echo this truth. They remind you that existence is fleeting but precious, and this awareness deepens your appreciation for the moments you are given. The night sky also teaches equality. Under it, all stand the same, rich and poor, powerful and weak, young and old. No one owns the stars. No one can alter their rhythm. To look upward is to remember that human divisions are temporary illusions. The cosmos does not distinguish between emperor and servant. Both are dust beneath the same expanse. This awareness reduces envy, softens pride, and encourages compassion. For the Stoics, the night was a time to align thought with logos, the rational principle that orders the universe. To see the stars was to be reminded of this principle, to recall that everything happens in accordance with a larger design. Even suffering and loss, seen against the backdrop of cosmic order, find meaning. They are not random cruelties, but threads in a fabric too vast for the human eye to grasp. Trust in this order allows the mind to rest even in hardship, for it knows nothing is wasted. This reflection can become a nightly ritual of its own. Step outside or gaze through a window before rest. Let the stars or the dark sky fill your sight. Release the chatter of the day and place yourself within the whole. Say quietly, I am a part of this vast design. My life is brief, my troubles are small, but my soul can live in harmony with nature. This statement is not self-negation, but liberation. It frees you from obsession and anchors you in perspective. Even in cities where stars are hidden by light, darkness itself can serve. Close your eyes and contemplate the unseen expanse. Picture the galaxies beyond, the endlessness that stretches past comprehension. Allow the mind to rest in mystery, no longer demanding clarity, but accepting its smallness. This humility opens the way to rest. Anxiety shrinks, gratitude grows, and the soul settles into peace. Over time, this practice transforms the way you view life. Worries lose their sharpness. Achievements lose their arrogance. Failures lose their sting. You carry within you the awareness of vastness, and it steadies you in all things. The night sky becomes a teacher, reminding you night after night that peace is not found in clinging to control, but in aligning with the greater order that surrounds you. When the Stoics wrote of living in accordance with nature, they meant more than personal health or earthly cycles. They meant living in awareness of the whole, recognizing that human life is woven into a cosmos of unimaginable scale. To sleep under the night sky is to return to this truth. To see the stars or to rest in darkness is to remember who you are, a small but essential part of a vast order. And from that remembrance comes peace, the kind that no trouble of the day can destroy. Thus, the night becomes not merely a pause between days, but a lesson written in silence and light. Each evening offers the chance to step beyond yourself, to read the sky as a Stoic text, and to rest in the knowledge that you belong to something greater than your fears. And when this awareness carries you into sleep, it is not the sleep of escape, but of harmony, a rest aligned with the very rhythm of the universe. Contemplating the night sky brings perspective, shrinking worries against the vast order of the cosmos. Yet even with such clarity, there are nights when sleep still refuses to arrive. The stars may calm the mind, but the body remains awake, and the hours stretch long. Most people greet this with frustration, treating insomnia as punishment. But the Stoics saw another path. What keeps others restless can become a school for the soul. Sleeplessness, unwelcome as it feels, is itself a teacher, offering lessons in patience, endurance, and reflection that no quiet night of easy rest can provide. The first lesson of insomnia is patience. When the clock ticks louder and the body resists sleep, frustration rises. The ordinary mind begins to argue with itself. Why am I still awake? Why won't this end? This inner struggle magnifies the problem. But to accept sleeplessness as training is to reverse the process. Instead of fighting, you wait. You allow the night to unfold as it will, without demand. Seneca taught that time is not in our power, only how we use it. In wakeful hours, you learn this truth directly. You cannot command the body to sleep, but you can choose to wait without anger, to rest without resentment. Patience forged in this way strengthens you for every delay and trial in life. The second lesson is endurance. Fatigue tests the body, but fatigue does not break the soul. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that the body may be weary, yet reason can still remain steady. Virtue can still be practiced. A sleepless night reveals this clearly. Even when tired, you can act with kindness, with restraint, with clarity. You discover that the soul is tougher than the flesh, that you can carry weariness without surrendering peace. This endurance is a gift insomnia grants to those willing to accept its challenge. The third lesson is reflection. In silence, when sleep does not come, the mind has space to wander inward. Many avoid this, fearing what they will meet. But sleepless hours open a doorway to honest review. What stirred you today? Where did you act with virtue? Where did you fail? In the day, distractions push these questions aside. At night, there is nowhere to hide. To use insomnia well is to turn it into a mirror, not for torment, but for learning. Epictetus urged his students to examine their judgments constantly, and the wakeful night offers such examination freely. Sleeplessness also teaches humility. It strips away the illusion of control. No matter how carefully you plan your routines, no matter how perfectly you prepare, sleep remains a gift, not a guarantee. When it withholds itself, the ego protests. But to accept its absence is to admit your limits, to acknowledge that nature governs more than you do. This humility dissolves arrogance. You stop believing that life must bend to your will. You learn to live in alignment with what is given, not what is demanded. There is also a lesson in detachment. Many people tie their peace to sleep, saying, "If I do not rest, I cannot function." Yet, history is filled with examples of thinkers, leaders, and philosophers who endured long stretches of fatigue and still lived fully. The Stoics themselves often wrote in the late hours, "To detach from the demand for perfect rest is to free yourself from dependency." You may be tired, but tiredness need not rule you. You can choose to meet the day as best you can, regardless of the night. Detachment turns sleeplessness from curse to challenge. Modern psychology supports this perspective. Cognitive behavioral research shows that the fear of insomnia worsens its effects more than the lack of sleep itself. Those who view wakefulness with calm acceptance suffer less than those who resist it. The Stoic approach, centuries old, anticipated this discovery. Reframe insomnia not as catastrophe, but as practice, and its burden lessens. What science measures, philosophy already lived. Insomnia also trains resilience against discomfort. The human tendency is to flee from every form of unease, but growth rarely comes from ease. To sit with the restlessness of a long night, to face the fog of fatigue in the morning, is to practice living with discomfort without collapse. The more you train in this, the less the world can unseat you. You learn that you can carry unease without being undone, that comfort is not required for virtue. This resilience serves you far beyond the bedroom. It prepares you for illness, hardship, and loss. Another gift hidden in insomnia is time. While most curse the extra hours of wakefulness, those hours can be used, not for frantic activity, but for thought, for reading, for writing, for quiet presence. Seneca warned that people complain of the shortness of life while wasting much of it. Sleeplessness, when accepted, offers time reclaimed. Instead of tossing in resentment, you can spend those hours nurturing the soul. Even if sleep never comes, the time is not lost. Insomnia also reveals attachment to routine. We believe life must follow our schedule, and when it breaks, we feel powerless. But Stoicism teaches that the wise adapt. To treat sleeplessness as practice in flexibility is to learn that peace is possible even when plans collapse. The night no longer dictates your mood. You bend without breaking. This adaptability carries into the day, making you calmer in the face of delay, disruption, or disappointment. At a deeper level, insomnia confronts the fear of silence. Many cannot bear wakeful hours because silence unmasks the thoughts they have avoided. Yet facing those thoughts builds strength. Each fear brought into awareness loses power. Each regret acknowledged without denial becomes a teacher. The quiet of the night becomes not emptiness, but fullness, filled with insights available only when the world has stopped. There is also an ethical dimension. Sleepless nights often bring reflection on how we have treated others. Regret surfaces, conscience awakens, awareness sharpens. To use these hours well is to correct yourself honestly. The next day, you carry resolution to act with greater virtue. In this sense, insomnia becomes moral training. It keeps the soul accountable, ensuring that life is not wasted in careless action. Insomnia can even cultivate gratitude. After several wakeful nights, a full night of rest feels like profound luxury. Gratitude deepens because you have experienced its absence. The Stoics valued such contrasts, for they taught the soul not to take blessings for granted. Sleeplessness heightens awareness of the gift of rest, making gratitude more sincere when it returns. Finally, insomnia teaches acceptance of mortality. Long nights often bring thoughts of death, of the body's fragility, of life's brevity. These thoughts unsettle many, but the Stoics welcomed them as reminders. To face mortality in sleepless hours is to prepare for it with calm. Each reflection loosens fear, each acceptance builds peace. What many view as torment becomes preparation for the greatest transition of all. Over time, insomnia ceases to be an enemy. It becomes a stern but faithful instructor. It teaches patience when you wish to rush, endurance when you feel weak, humility when you seek control, reflection when you avoid honesty, resilience when you crave comfort, gratitude when you forget blessings, and acceptance when you fear loss. The lessons are not soft, but they are real, and they prepare you for life in all its forms. Thus, the sleepless night, reframed, is no longer wasted. It is a training ground, a crucible, a classroom. While others curse it, the Stoic learns from it. And when morning comes, though the body may be tired, the soul is stronger. In this way, insomnia becomes not a punishment, but a gift. The kind of gift that only the wise recognize and only the brave can truly use. Insomnia, when treated as a teacher, transforms restless hours into a school of patience and endurance. Yet even when you learn to face wakefulness calmly, there remains another challenge. What fills the mind when sleep is delayed or dreams are near? The imagination, left untended, often chooses pathways of worry, regret, or fantasy that only disturb the spirit further. The Stoics offered a way to guide this wandering faculty, turning it from a source of agitation into a source of strength. They called upon the discipline of memory, not simply to recall facts, but to build mental palaces, spaces within the mind filled with noble thoughts and virtues. By shaping what occupies the imagination, the Stoic ensured that even in sleeplessness or in dreams, the soul remained in training. The practice of memory palaces was not uniquely Stoic. It was a technique used by orators to recall speeches, by scholars to preserve knowledge. But the Stoics reshaped it into something greater, a moral architecture. Instead of filling halls of memory with names or dates, they filled them with examples of courage, justice, moderation, and wisdom. In this way, the mind became a sanctuary rather than a prison. When thoughts arose at night, they were not random or destructive, but ordered and purposeful, guiding the spirit toward peace. The method is both simple and profound. You picture a familiar place in detail, a house, a temple, a garden. Within it, you assign each room or corner to a virtue or lesson. In one space, you place a story of courage. In another, an example of justice. In another, a maxim of wisdom. The mind, wandering naturally, enters these rooms, encountering reminders that uplift rather than burden. Instead of replaying insults or regrets, you replay noble examples. Instead of worrying about tomorrow, you revisit eternal truths. The imagination, often a saboteur, becomes a trusted companion. Seneca advised filling the mind with images of great men, recalling their actions and words in times of struggle. By carrying these images into the night, the spirit is shielded from trivial concerns. Marcus Aurelius did the same, writing notes to himself that acted as anchors for reflection. These were not mere writings, but memory markers designed to guide his thoughts when emotions threatened to scatter them. This was the essence of Stoic memory palaces, to stock the inner world with material worthy of contemplation. The benefits of this practice are immediate. At night, when thoughts seek occupation, they find what you have placed there. If you stock the mind with grievances, the night will replay them. If you stock it with virtue, the night will nurture them. The choice is yours. By deliberately constructing memory palaces, you claim authorship over the imagination. You stop being a victim of thought and become its architect. There is also a protective quality in this discipline. The mind, when left empty, becomes vulnerable to intrusive thoughts, fears, and anxieties. But a mind stocked with noble material resists intrusion. Just as a fortress protects against invaders, a memory palace protects against mental chaos. To review virtues before sleep is to set guards at the gates of the soul. This practice also deepens learning. Reading philosophy during the day offers inspiration, but without repetition, it fades. By placing lessons in memory palaces, you rehearse them nightly, embedding them deeply. Over time, they become second nature. When challenges arise, you do not search for guidance. It is already there, trained into your imagination. The night thus strengthens what the day teaches. Modern neuroscience affirms this principle. Studies on memory consolidation show that the brain rehearses and strengthens what is repeated before sleep. By filling the mind with virtues, you literally train the brain to encode them more deeply. Dreams themselves may begin to reflect these themes, further embedding them into character. What the Stoics practiced intuitively is now understood scientifically. What you think on before sleep shapes who you become. The use of memory palaces also refines attention. To construct them, you must focus, design, and order. This counters the restless scattering of thought. Instead of drifting aimlessly, the mind moves with purpose through images carefully chosen. This discipline carries into daily life. A mind trained to order itself at night is a mind that remains ordered under pressure by day. Another fruit of this practice is resilience against temptation. When you fill the imagination with stories of self-control, generosity, or courage, these models guide you subconsciously. In moments of weakness, you recall the example you placed in memory. It stands before you as a standard, urging you toward virtue. At night, you plant the seed. In the day, it bears fruit. The construction of memory palaces can also be creative. You may fill them not only with historical figures, but with personal examples, times when you acted with strength, when you showed patience, when you overcame fear. These reminders become anchors of self-trust. When doubt rises, you revisit them, remembering that you have lived with virtue before and can do so again. The night becomes a rehearsal of confidence, guarding against despair. This discipline also fosters gratitude. By recalling the virtues of others, you honor their example. By recalling your own moments of strength, you honor your progress. Gratitude grows not from vague feeling, but from concrete memory. The palace becomes a gallery of blessings, strengthening appreciation and quiet joy. In practice, building such palaces requires intention. Begin with a simple structure, perhaps your own room or house. Place within it 3 or 4 images of virtues or lessons you wish to carry. Walk through it in your mind before sleep. Over time, expand it, adding new rooms, new examples, new truths. Let it grow with you. Each night, revisit it, polish it, strengthen it. The palace becomes not only storage, but a living companion, evolving as you do. Over months and years, this practice reshapes the character. The mind, trained in this way, no longer drifts toward bitterness or fear. It gravitates naturally toward virtue. You no longer need to force noble thoughts. They arise because you have built their dwelling place. The palace is within you always, accessible in moments of stress, fatigue, or sorrow. It becomes a true sanctuary, not built of stone, but of memory and discipline. The ultimate lesson of this practice is mastery of the imagination. The Stoics knew that the imagination can destroy peace or build it, depending on what it holds. By taking responsibility for its contents, you exercise the highest form of freedom, freedom over the self. You choose what stories replay in your mind, what images accompany your dreams, what models shape your actions. No tyrant, no misfortune, no loss can strip this from you. The palace you build within remains yours always, and so the night ceases to be a place of chaos. Sleepless hours no longer drift into worry, but into reflection guided by order. Dreams themselves are fed with images of virtue, shaping the subconscious toward wisdom. The Stoic who practices memory palaces does not waste the night, but transforms it into training. And from that training, peace arises. Not fragile, not fleeting, but steady, rooted in the deepest part of the soul. The discipline of building memory palaces turns the imagination into a guide, filling the inner world with examples of virtue rather than letting the mind wander aimlessly. Yet memory alone is not enough. Storing lessons and noble examples must lead to action, for philosophy without practice is empty. The Stoics placed special weight on justice, the virtue that binds the individual to others. Nighttime, with its stillness and honesty, provides the perfect moment to examine whether you have lived justly. To review your day through this lens is not to torment yourself with guilt, but to align your actions with fairness, to free your conscience, and to strengthen your resolve for tomorrow. Justice is often misunderstood as something only for courts and rulers, but for the Stoics, it was the foundation of daily life. It meant treating others fairly, respecting their humanity, and refraining from harming them in pursuit of personal gain. Marcus Aurelius wrote that what is not good for the hive cannot be good for the bee. Justice was this recognition that no one lives in isolation, and that harmony with others is a duty of reason. At night, when distractions fade, you can ask with clarity, did I act with fairness today? Did I honor others as fellow human beings? Or did I let impatience, selfishness, or pride distort my behavior? The value of this nightly practice is twofold. First, it prevents guilt from festering. When you examine yourself honestly, you catch missteps early. A harsh word, a careless act, a broken promise. These need not rot in silence. By facing them at night, you acknowledge them openly. Guilt loses its corrosive power when it is brought to light and coupled with a vow to correct. Second, it trains the conscience to stay awake during the day. Knowing that you will review your actions each evening makes you more attentive while they unfold. You carry justice with you because you know the night will ask for an account. This practice is not about self-condemnation. The Stoics rejected perfectionism. They knew all humans stumble. Seneca admitted to faults and wrote letters reflecting on them, not to despair, but to learn. To review your day through justice is not to curse yourself, but to guide yourself. You acknowledge error, you feel its weight, but you also remind yourself that tomorrow offers a chance to do better. This combination, honest recognition with calm resolution, is what frees the mind from both arrogance and despair. Consider how often conflicts are left unresolved simply because no space is made to reflect. Harshness toward a colleague, neglect of a friend, dishonesty in small matters. Without review, these build layers of tension. But when you ask at night, "Was I fair? Did I treat this person as I would wish to be treated?" you bring these moments into focus. You cannot always undo them immediately, but you can prepare yourself to apologize, to correct, to avoid repeating. Each review is a promise to realign yourself with justice. There is also liberation in this ritual. Guilt, when ignored, poisons rest. The mind replays mistakes endlessly, whispering accusations in the dark. But when you review consciously, you transform guilt into action. You say, "Yes, I failed here, but I see it clearly, and I will correct it." The mind then rests easier, knowing the error has been faced, not buried. Peace grows not from perfection, but from accountability. Justice at night also strengthens compassion. In reviewing your day, you see not only where you fell short, but also where others did. Instead of feeding resentment, you recognize that just as you falter, so do they. This recognition breeds patience, the same standard you apply to yourself. Honest review and correction you extend to others. You forgive more easily because you know how often you yourself need forgiveness. This nightly reflection also cultivates humility. When you look honestly at your actions, pride is stripped away. You see clearly how often impulse, ego, or carelessness guide you. Yet this humility is not crushing, it is freeing. It reminds you that growth is possible, that each day is a chance to move closer to virtue. Pride blinds, humility teaches. Nightly justice ensures you do not drift into arrogance. Modern psychology reflects these Stoic insights. Journaling practices that focus on ethical reflection reduce stress, improve relationships, and strengthen decision-making. Cognitive science shows that when people regularly review behavior and commit to correction, they are less likely to repeat harmful patterns. What the Stoics practiced as philosophy is now confirmed as a method of lasting growth. Another benefit is clarity of conscience. To live justly is to live without fear of exposure. Many anxieties come not from external threats, but from the hidden knowledge of our own unfairness. By reviewing and correcting daily, you prevent these shadows from growing. You rest with greater ease because nothing is festering in secret. The soul feels lighter when it knows it has faced itself fully. This practice also guards against rationalization. During the day, it is easy to justify small injustices, impatience, neglect, dishonesty. But at night, when silence surrounds you, excuses lose power. The question is simple: was this fair? If not, the answer cannot be hidden. This honesty, repeated nightly, keeps the conscience sharp. It prevents the slow erosion of character that comes when small compromises accumulate. Justice at night is not only about mistakes, it is also about affirming what you did right. When you acted kindly, when you spoke truthfully, when you helped another at cost to yourself, acknowledge it, not with vanity, but with gratitude. You see that virtue is possible, that goodness is not beyond you. This balance, seeing both failure and success, creates steady growth. You avoid despair by remembering your progress, and you avoid arrogance by remembering your faults. The Stoics saw justice as inseparable from reason. To act unjustly is to deny your own nature as a rational being. Reviewing justice each night restores you to that nature. It reminds you that reason's purpose is not only to serve yourself, but to serve the whole. You are part of a community, and justice is the bond that makes community possible. Without it, all collapses. With it, even hardship can be endured. To practice this nightly, set aside a few minutes in silence. Recall the people you met, the words you spoke, the actions you took. Ask, did I act with fairness? Did I let anger distort my response? Did I treat others as means or as ends? Let the answers come without disguise. Where you see faults, vow correction. Where you see virtue, give thanks. Then release both. Rest not in regret or pride, but in resolve. Over time, this ritual reshapes the way you move through the world. Knowing that the night will ask for an account, you act more justly during the day. You catch impatience before it becomes cruelty, dishonesty before it becomes deceit. Justice ceases to be an abstract virtue and becomes a living habit woven into each choice. The deepest gift of this practice is freedom of soul. To act unjustly is to carry hidden chains, fear of exposure, weight of guilt, corrosion of spirit. To act justly, or at least to face injustice with honesty and correction, is to break those chains. The night becomes not a court of condemnation, but a place of renewal. Each evening you cleanse the soul, restoring it to balance. In this way, practicing justice at night prepares you for rest without turmoil and for life without hypocrisy. You rise in the morning not burdened by guilt or blinded by pride, but steady, clear, and resolved to live in greater harmony with others. And this, the Stoics would say, is the path not only to peace of mind, but to the highest form of strength, the strength that comes from justice lived sincerely. Reviewing the fairness of your actions each night clears the conscience and sets the stage for honesty with yourself. Yet even after examining your choices, releasing guilt, and resolving to act more justly, the challenge of rest itself still remains. Sleep does not arrive because you command it. It does not obey effort or force. It comes only when you yield, when you let go of control. For the Stoics, this surrender was not weakness, but wisdom. To drift into sleep is to practice the same alignment with nature they urged in every part of life, to release what lies beyond your power and flow with what is given. Letting go into sleep mirrors the greatest lesson of Stoicism, acceptance of what you cannot govern. You can prepare your body with moderation, calm your mind with reflection, and order your imagination with noble thoughts, but you cannot dictate the exact moment sleep arrives. The more you demand, the more it retreats. This tension is a perfect metaphor for life itself. Much of human suffering comes from trying to force what cannot be forced. To practice surrender at night is to train for surrender in the day. Seneca wrote that we suffer twice when we resist what is natural. The body longs for rest, yet the mind clings to control, creating a battle where none need exist. True rest begins when the will softens. To allow sleep to come when it will is to acknowledge that nature moves according to her own rhythm. You are part of that rhythm, not its master. Each night offers a rehearsal. Release. Let the current carry you. Trust that the same power that spins the stars also guides your rest. This surrender is not carelessness. It is not saying nothing matters. It is the conscious choice to loosen the grip of anxiety, to admit that some things are not yours to command. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that the universe is ordered, that each part serves a role within the whole. To let yourself rest is to accept your role not as controller of outcomes, but as participant in nature's design. Sleep becomes not an escape, but an act of trust. The experience of falling asleep shows the lesson clearly. The harder you chase it, the further it slips away. The softer you rest in patience, the sooner it arrives. This is life in miniature. Fortune, like sleep, resists the grasping hand, but opens to the steady spirit. Practicing this nightly plants the lesson deep in your character. You learn that surrender is often the path to strength, that peace comes not from force, but from release. There is also humility in this act. To close your eyes is to admit limits. No matter your ambition or power, you must rest. No ruler, no thinker, no hero escapes this need. The most powerful emperor and the most humble laborer are equal in surrendering to sleep. The Stoics cherished this reminder of equality. It dissolves pride, teaching you that you too are bound by the laws of nature. To yield willingly rather than resentfully is to align yourself with truth. Surrendering into sleep also offers a rehearsal for mortality. Each night you release consciousness, entering a state you cannot control, uncertain of what dreams will bring or whether you will even wake. Marcus Aurelius often compared sleep to death, urging himself not to fear either. To rest is to practice letting go of control, preparing the soul for its final surrender. This reflection does not darken the night, but deepens gratitude for each awakening. Sleep becomes both teacher and reminder of the brevity of life. Modern science confirms this wisdom. Sleep researchers note that anxiety is the greatest obstacle to rest. Effort, striving, and tension delay the very thing desired. Techniques of letting go, mindfulness, acceptance, non-resistance, improve rest precisely because they mirror Stoic surrender. To lie down and release judgment of whether you sleep well is to create the very conditions for better sleep. Philosophy and biology converge. Surrender is health. The practice can be made deliberate. As you prepare for bed, remind yourself, I have done what I can. The day is complete. Its choices cannot be undone. Its tasks cannot all be finished. Its worries will not be solved tonight. With this thought, you release the need to hold everything. You let it fall into the larger flow of nature. In this release, rest becomes possible. There is freedom in recognizing that you do not hold the world together by refusing to sleep. The sun will rise without your command. The rivers will run. The stars will move. Life will continue. Your role is not to bear the weight of everything, but to contribute your part and then rest. This perspective lightens the burden of responsibility. You carry what is yours during the day and surrender it at night, trusting the order of things to hold. Surrender also nurtures gratitude. When you accept sleep as gift rather than possession, you meet it with appreciation. Each morning becomes a blessing, a reminder that life has been given again. The Stoics urged this awareness, to wake not as if owed another day, but as if granted one. Nightly surrender prepares you for this gratitude, for you wake from letting go with new perspective. Another dimension of surrender is trust in the body. Many live estranged from their own nature, doubting its wisdom, but the body knows how to restore itself if given the chance. You need not micromanage every heartbeat or breath, and you need not force sleep. To yield is to trust that your body, aligned with nature, will take what it needs. This trust rebuilds harmony between mind and body, a harmony often broken by modern restlessness. Surrendering into sleep also dissolves the illusion of constant control that dominates daily life. During the day, you make decisions, plan, and strive. At night, you must release. This daily rhythm trains humility. It reminds you that mastery of life does not mean domination, but balance. The wise know when to act and when to yield. Sleep becomes practice in this balance, a nightly reminder that letting go is as important as holding on. Even sleeplessness can teach surrender. When sleep does not come, to accept wakefulness without agitation is itself yielding to nature's flow. You do not demand what is not offered. You rest in wakefulness, knowing it too is part of the whole. In this way, surrender brings peace, whether you sleep or not. The practice itself becomes the source of calm, not the outcome. Over time, treating sleep as surrender reshapes your character. You become less attached to control in all things. You move through life with steadier rhythm, no longer panicked by outcomes beyond your reach. Just as you release the day each night, you release worries, grudges, and fears during the day. Surrender becomes not a single act, but a way of being. Thus, the bed is not only a place of rest, but a place of practice. Each night, you rehearse the greatest Stoic truth. Align yourself with nature. Accept what comes. Release what is beyond you. In doing so, you find peace deeper than sleep alone can give. You wake not only refreshed in body, but freed in spirit, ready to live another day with clarity, humility, and trust. In this way, sleep becomes more than necessity. It becomes philosophy in practice, a daily exercise in surrender. Each night teaches you again that peace comes not from grasping, but from yielding, not from control, but from harmony with the flow of nature. And from that surrender, both rest and wisdom arise. Surrendering to sleep teaches the soul to release control and rest in the rhythm of nature. Yet yielding is only one half of the nightly practice. What you release makes space, but what you choose to fill that space with determines the quality of your inner life. The Stoics did not stop at acceptance. They trained themselves to meet hardship not only without complaint, but with gratitude. Each difficulty, each irritation, each pain of the day was treated as a gift for the soul's education. To end the night by thanking fortune for adversity may feel unnatural at first, but it is a discipline that transforms bitterness into strength and turns wounds into wisdom. Gratitude for adversity is not the shallow cheerfulness of pretending that pain is pleasant. It is the deeper recognition that hardship is the raw material from which resilience is built. Seneca compared misfortune to a test given by the gods, not to crush, but to prove and strengthen. Just as a wrestler grows only by meeting opponents, the soul grows only by meeting challenges. To thank fortune for difficulty is to see yourself as a student rather than a victim, to claim agency over the meaning of your trials. At night, when the day has settled and you review its events, you can choose to name the adversities you faced. Perhaps it was an insult, a disappointment, a failure, or a loss. Instead of replaying them with anger, you frame them as training. You say, "This was my opportunity to practice patience. This was my chance to show courage. This was my exercise in humility." By naming hardships as exercises, you transform their weight. They become evidence that you are being prepared for greater strength, not signs that you are cursed. This practice also guards against resentment. Many people end their days carrying a sense of injustice, convinced that fate has singled them out unfairly. This mindset poisons rest. But when you deliberately thank fortune for the very trials you faced, resentment dissolves. You acknowledge that fortune gives and takes, not out of cruelty, but out of order. and that every difficulty can be turned to your good if you meet it with the right spirit. This gratitude does not erase pain, but it prevents bitterness from multiplying it. Gratitude for adversity also builds humility. By thanking fortune, you admit that you do not see the whole picture. What feels like harm today may prove tomorrow to be protection or preparation. How many times has a loss opened the way for growth, or a rejection preserved you from a greater downfall? To thank fortune is to trust that the order of life carries wisdom greater than your own perspective. This humility allows the soul to rest without demanding explanations for everything that happens. Marcus Aurelius often wrote that obstacles become the path. He trained himself to see resistance as material for virtue, not an interruption of it. At night, you can echo this practice by recalling the day's obstacles and asking, what virtue did this call forth? Did it demand patience, honesty, courage, restraint? By recognizing the virtue hidden in adversity, you shift from complaint to appreciation. What once seemed meaningless suffering becomes purposeful training. Modern psychology reinforces this Stoic exercise. Research on post-traumatic growth shows that people who reframe hardship as opportunity develop greater resilience, deeper relationships, and stronger values. Gratitude interventions, even in the context of adversity, reduce stress and improve well-being. The Stoics, without data or studies, grasped this truth intuitively. The way you interpret hardship shapes whether it weakens or strengthens you. Nightly gratitude for adversity is the act of choosing strength. Another benefit of this discipline is freedom from fear of future trials. When you train yourself to thank fortune for difficulties, you no longer dread them with the same intensity. You know that whatever comes can serve you if you meet it rightly. Fear loses its sharpness because every outcome has value. This does not make you reckless, but it makes you brave. The night becomes a rehearsal not only for gratitude, but for courage in facing tomorrow's unknowns. This gratitude also deepens joy. It may seem paradoxical, but the person who can thank fortune for hardships enjoys blessings more fully. Why? Because their happiness is no longer fragile, dependent on everything going smoothly. When joy can coexist with struggle, it becomes unshakable. Gratitude for adversity weaves strength into your joy, making it resilient against loss. You wake each morning not fearing what the day may bring, but knowing that whatever it brings can be used for your growth. The ritual itself can be simple. Before sleep, recall the hardest moment of your day. Instead of rejecting it, name it as your training. Say, "Thank you for this chance to grow in patience, to practice courage, to test my humility." Then release it, trusting that the lesson has been planted in your soul. Over time, this habit rewires your relationship to difficulty. You stop seeing adversity as intrusion and begin to see it as ally. The Stoics also knew that gratitude for hardship strengthens community. When you face difficulties with patience and grace, you ease the burdens of those around you. Your calm becomes a shelter for others. By thanking fortune for your own trials, you model resilience for those who watch you. In this way, adversity becomes not only personal training, but communal service. Gratitude multiplies its benefits beyond yourself. This practice requires honesty. You cannot fake gratitude for pain. The mind resists false cheer, but you can acknowledge the sting while still choosing to see its value. You say, "This was hard, and I would not have chosen it, but I accept that it has sharpened me." This honesty makes the gratitude real, not forced. It balances acknowledgement of suffering with recognition of growth. In time, this nightly discipline alters your entire outlook. You become less fragile, less prone to resentment, less bound by fear. Each trial faced with gratitude strengthens your trust in your own resilience. Each hardship seen as training makes you less likely to collapse under future burdens. Gratitude for adversity becomes not only a nightly ritual, but a way of living. And so the day closes, not in bitterness, but in thanksgiving, not in complaint, but in strength. You rest knowing that nothing has been wasted, that every difficulty has contributed to your soul's growth. Sleep then arrives not as escape, but as renewal, and you wake prepared to meet the next day with courage and calm. The Stoics were right. Fortune may test you, but each test is a gift, and to thank it is to rise above it. Gratitude for adversity teaches the soul to treat hardship as training rather than torment. Yet even when trials are welcomed as lessons, another danger often creeps in: the feeling of being alone in suffering. Pain isolates. Challenges convince the mind that no one else understands, that your burdens are heavier than others. This illusion feeds despair and deepens restlessness at night. Marcus Aurelius confronted this directly, reminding himself that all humans are bound by the same struggles. To fall asleep mindful of this kinship is to dissolve isolation, to see yourself not as a solitary bearer of pain, but as one thread in the vast fabric of humanity. Marcus returned to this theme often in his meditations. He reminded himself that anger fades when you remember others act out of weakness just as you do, that envy fades when you recall each person shares the same fragile mortality, that pride fades when you accept all are subject to fortune's blows. At night, this reflection can calm the heart. Instead of replaying offenses or drowning in loneliness, you reflect. Everyone has known disappointment. Everyone has tasted fear. Everyone has carried loss. What feels like your private struggle is in fact the shared condition of the species. This kinship is not meant to minimize your pain, but to contextualize it. The Stoics did not dismiss suffering. They placed it within the larger truth of common humanity. When you remind yourself that billions before you have endured illness, betrayal, grief and fatigue, your own experience becomes less unbearable. You are not singled out by fate. You are part of the human story, and what you face is what countless others have faced and overcome. This perspective removes bitterness and plants solidarity. Falling asleep with this awareness has practical effects. Isolation often keeps people awake, spiraling in thoughts of being misunderstood or abandoned. But when you deliberately recall that others share the same restless nights, the same doubts, the same battles, comfort arises. You sense invisible companionship. Though the room is silent, you are not alone. This softens anxiety and creates space for rest. Marcus Aurelius also linked kinship to duty. If all are bound by the same human condition, then justice, compassion and patience are not optional. They are natural. To reflect on this before sleep strengthens your commitment to treat others fairly the next day. Nightly awareness of shared struggle plants seeds of kindness that blossom in action. Thus, kinship is not only comfort, but a call to live with greater humanity. There is humility here as well. Remembering kinship strips away superiority. You may have wealth, strength or influence, but you still share mortality, pain and weakness with the poorest and most obscure. This recognition dissolves arrogance. At night, when stripped of status, you meet the truth. You are human, nothing more, and nothing less. Sleep levels all, and kinship makes that leveling peaceful rather than frightening. Modern psychology supports this practice. Studies on self-compassion and common humanity show that recognizing others' struggles reduces depression, increases resilience, and builds empathy. The Stoics anticipated this by centuries, urging nightly reflection on human connection as medicine for despair. Loneliness weakens health. Kinship restores it. This practice can take many forms. Before bed, recall one difficulty you faced during the day. Then remind yourself, others faced the same, perhaps even greater. Someone else struggled with illness, someone else with rejection, someone else with fear. Let this awareness soften the sense of isolation. Extend the thought further. The very people who irritated you are also struggling. Their rudeness, their impatience, their cruelty, these are products of the same human frailty you know in yourself. To fall asleep with this thought is to free the mind from resentment. Kinship also nurtures gratitude. When you realize all humans bear burdens, the kindnesses you receive stand out more clearly. A friend's support, a stranger's courtesy, a loved one's patience, these become treasures because they are given despite struggle. Gratitude deepens when you see that others, weighed down as they are, still choose to show goodness. At night, this recognition warms the heart and settles the spirit. There is also courage in kinship. Knowing you are not alone in suffering makes it easier to endure. If countless others have walked through pain and continued, so can you. Marcus often reminded himself that nothing has happened to him that is not common to humanity. This thought stripped away self-pity and replaced it with strength. Nightly reflection on kinship builds the same courage in you. Kinship also transforms the way you see death. Fear of death isolates, convincing you that your end is uniquely terrifying. But when you remember that all who lived before you have faced the same passage, fear softens. You are not entering unknown territory alone, but walking a path shared by all. To reflect on this at night is to lessen dread and to greet mortality with calm acceptance. This awareness cultivates compassion in daily life. If you fall asleep mindful that everyone you meet is carrying hidden burdens, you wake more patient, more gentle, less quick to judge. The rude driver, the inattentive colleague, the distant friend, all are human, wrestling with struggles unseen. Kinship dissolves harshness and nurtures understanding. Your nights of reflection become mornings of kindness. Even conflict is reshaped by kinship. Anger thrives on separation, believing the other is wholly different, wholly malicious. But when you remind yourself that their flaws mirror your own, anger loses fuel. You see not an enemy, but another human failing as you fail. This recognition brings peace, both within and between. To fall asleep with it is to rest without the poison of hostility. Over time, nightly reflection on kinship reshapes your sense of identity. You stop defining yourself solely by your private struggles and begin to see yourself as part of a larger whole. This dissolves isolation, strengthens resilience, and cultivates compassion. You live less as a solitary being and more as a participant in the human community. Thus, the night, instead of being filled with loneliness or resentment, becomes a time of reconnection. You close your eyes, not as a solitary sufferer, but as part of a vast brotherhood and sisterhood of humanity. The thought brings humility, courage, and peace. You rest lighter, knowing your struggles are shared, your burdens are not unique, and your place is secure within the great human family. And when you wake, you carry this kinship into action, living with justice and kindness, toward all who share the same fragile condition of being human. Recognizing kinship with all of humanity dissolves the sense of isolation, softens resentment, and plants compassion. But connection alone does not guarantee peace at night. Even when you know your struggles are shared, the body can still rebel against rest when it is overloaded with demands. The Stoics understood that much of our unrest comes not from true need, but from expectation. We convince ourselves we require more comfort than we do, more silence, more softness, more perfection. In truth, the body asks for little. Training it to rest well with less is both discipline and freedom. Minimalism in sleep is not deprivation but contentment, learning to need fewer pillows, fewer conditions, fewer demands. Contentment begins with stripping away illusions. Luxury whispers that rest depends on layers of comfort, the perfect mattress, the quietest room, the softest blanket. Yet the more conditions you create, the more fragile your peace becomes. A creak of the floor, a missing pillow, a slightly warmer night. All can unravel rest if you have trained the body to depend on excess. Minimalism removes this fragility. By practicing simplicity, you discover that rest is possible in many conditions, not just perfect ones. This discovery strengthens the soul, for it shows that peace does not hinge on circumstance. Seneca often warned against dependency on luxury, reminding his readers that comfort is sweetest when you can live without it. He advised practicing poverty not to glorify hardship, but to prove that you are stronger than desire. Applied to sleep, this means reminding yourself that the body can endure without the endless aids modern life insists upon. A firm bed, a single pillow, a plain blanket, these are enough. To rest with little is to prove to yourself that peace comes from within, not from the arrangement of objects around you. Minimalism in sleep also prepares you for life's unpredictability. Travel, illness, or hardship may strip away comforts at any moment. The person who requires perfect conditions collapses under such change. The person who has trained in simplicity remains steady. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to expect disruption, to greet discomfort with calm. When you have taught your body to rest with less, you carry resilience into every situation. No hotel bed, no noisy environment, no missing luxury can rob you of peace. There is also a moral lesson in this practice. Excess comfort dulls gratitude. When you are surrounded by softness, you stop noticing it. Simplicity restores awareness. A plain blanket feels like abundance when you have practiced with less. Minimalism sharpens appreciation for small gifts. At night, this gratitude calms the mind, making rest easier. It is not luxury, but perspective that creates peace. This discipline does not mean punishing the body. The Stoics never advocated needless suffering. They sought balance, enough to maintain health, not so much that dependence grows. The point is not denial, but freedom. You choose less to prove that you do not need more, to show yourself that sleep belongs to nature, not to luxury. When you wake refreshed from simple rest, you carry a quiet confidence that you are not owned by your environment. Modern science echoes this Stoic insight. Research shows that too much focus on perfect sleep conditions, known as sleep perfectionism, actually worsens insomnia. People who believe they need silence, darkness, and exact comfort become anxious when those conditions are not met. By contrast, those who accept a range of conditions sleep better. Minimalism in sleep trains this flexibility. It reduces anxiety and allows rest to arise naturally, without pressure. Another benefit is resilience against disappointment. Many lie awake frustrated because sleep does not meet their expectations. Too short, too light, too broken. But when you train in contentment with little, you remove the expectation that sleep must be perfect. You learn to say, even if I rest briefly, it is enough. Even if conditions are not ideal, I can still find peace. This attitude dissolves frustration, which is often more exhausting than lack of sleep itself. Minimalism in sleep also strengthens discipline in other areas. If you can train the body to rest with less, you can train the appetite to eat with less, the ego to thrive with less praise, the heart to endure with less comfort. The principle is the same. Contentment is not found in abundance, but in sufficiency. Nightly practice embeds this truth into the deepest part of your being. There is beauty in simplicity itself. A quiet room, a plain bed, a single blanket. These strip away distraction. They invite the mind into stillness, the body into ease. Luxury, with its many options, often creates restlessness, adjusting, rearranging, seeking the perfect position. Simplicity removes choice, leaving only acceptance. This acceptance calms the spirit. This practice also teaches humility. To need little is to recognize your true scale in the world. You are not entitled to endless comfort. You are part of nature, like all creatures, and nature provides enough. Animals rest on earth and stone, yet live. You too can rest without the trappings of excess. Humility brings peace, for it ends the battle between expectation and reality. In time, minimalism in sleep reshapes your entire relationship with desire. You no longer chase every craving, for you have proven that peace is possible without them. This confidence carries into the day. When temptation arises, whether for food, wealth, or approval, you recall the lesson of the night. I need little, and little is enough. This independence is true freedom. To practice, begin small. Remove one unnecessary layer of comfort. Reduce the number of pillows. Dim the dependence on devices. Simplify the ritual before bed. At first, the body may resist, craving its accustomed ease. But soon it adapts, and you discover that rest is not harmed by simplicity, but helped. Each step toward less strengthens the soul's sense of sufficiency. The deeper lesson is that rest comes not from abundance, but from alignment with nature. The body was designed to renew itself without luxury. Sleep, like breath, is natural. It arrives not because of comfort, but because the body belongs to a larger order. By practicing minimalism, you restore this natural rhythm. You remind yourself that sleep is not purchased by indulgence, but gifted by nature. Thus, the night becomes not a performance of conditions, but a return to simplicity. You close your eyes not with demands, but with contentment. Whether the bed is soft or firm, whether the room is silent or noisy, whether sleep is long or brief, you find peace in knowing that little is enough. The Stoics were right. The less you require, the freer you are. And in freedom, rest becomes natural, unshaken by circumstance, steady as the soul that has learned to be content with less. Learning contentment through minimalism in sleep teaches the soul that little is enough, that rest belongs to nature and not to luxury. Yet even when the body has settled into simplicity and the mind has accepted less, the night continues to offer challenges of a different kind. Dreams arise, sometimes pleasant, sometimes disturbing, and they can stir the heart long after waking. Many cling to delightful dreams, wishing they were real, while others are shaken by nightmares, carrying fear or sadness into the morning. The Stoics would not have us be slaves to shadows of the night. Their discipline calls for non-attachment, treating dreams as illusions, neither treasures to hold nor threats to fear. Dreams are vivid, but their power lies not in truth but in perception. A nightmare can quicken the pulse as if danger were present, yet upon waking the threat vanishes. A beautiful dream can fill the chest with longing, but its sweetness disappears when daylight comes. The Stoics taught that we must distinguish what is within our control from what is not. Dreams are not chosen, not directed, not governed by will. They come and go as flickers of the unconscious. To cling to them or to dread them is to give power to what lies beyond your command. Marcus Aurelius urged himself to wake each morning with clarity, reminding his soul not to be disturbed by phantoms of the mind. Though he spoke often of waking thoughts, the principle applies just as well to dreams. They are impressions without weight. They have no more reality than a shadow on the wall. To accept them as illusions is to rob them of power. Pleasant or painful, they are simply movements of the imagination in sleep, not messages of fate or judgments on your worth. Non-attachment to dreams mirrors non-attachment to daily fortune. Just as wealth or poverty, praise or blame are externals not fully yours, so are the contents of your sleep. To delight excessively in a joyful dream is no different from delighting excessively in praise. Both create dependency. To recoil in fear from a nightmare is no different from recoiling at insult. Both give control away. The Stoic trains the soul to meet each with equanimity, accepting them without clinging, releasing them without regret. This discipline requires a shift in perspective. Many cultures throughout history have treated dreams as omens or secret messages, but the Stoics placed little trust in them. Seneca dismissed superstition, reminding his students that wisdom rests on reason, not on signs from shadows. Dreams may reveal something about the state of the body or the stirrings of memory, but they do not dictate destiny. To interpret them as commands of fortune is to enslave yourself to chance. To see them as illusions is to free yourself from their grip. There is also a psychological benefit in this practice. People who obsess over dreams often carry emotional residue into the day, guilt for imagined actions, longing for imagined pleasures, fear from imagined threats. By practicing non-attachment, you protect the mind from this residue. You wake clean, not weighed down by shadows. Dreams are acknowledged, perhaps even noted, but then set aside. You carry only what is real into the day. This attitude also trains you in the larger Stoic principle of perception. The mind is easily fooled by appearances, both waking and sleeping. A nightmare is no different in essence from an insult. Both are impressions, and both require judgment before they disturb. If you choose to treat the impression as truth, you suffer. If you withhold judgment, you remain free. Nightly non-attachment to dreams strengthens this faculty. You learn to pause, to evaluate, to release. Another lesson in this discipline is humility. Dreams remind us that the mind contains depths we cannot fully govern. They show us images, thoughts and feelings we may not choose. To accept this without shame or pride is to recognize your humanity. You are not master of every flicker of thought, but you are master of your response. Humility guards you from interpreting dreams as reflections of your true self. They are movements of the unconscious, not verdicts on character. Modern science affirms this Stoic wisdom. Neuroscience shows that dreams are the brain's way of processing memory, emotion, and random neural activity. They are not predictions, but patterns. Nightmares often reflect stress, while pleasant dreams may echo desire. To interpret them as absolute truth is to misread their nature. Acceptance without clinging aligns perfectly with both philosophy and science. They are illusions, meaningful only in how you choose to respond. This practice can be applied as a ritual upon waking. When you recall a dream, instead of attaching value, you remind yourself, this was illusion. If pleasant, you thank it for its sweetness and let it pass. If painful, you note it as training in endurance and let it dissolve. You do not carry either into the day as truth. In this way, the boundary between sleep and waking is kept clean. The soul does not stumble under false impressions, but steps into the morning with clarity. There is also a deeper symbolic meaning in treating dreams as illusions. Life itself, the Stoics reminded us, is fleeting, fragile, and uncertain. To cling to its pleasures or fear its pains is as misguided as clinging to dreams. Both pass quickly. Both dissolve in time. By practicing non-attachment to dreams, you rehearse non-attachment to life's externals. You train yourself to hold all things lightly, to live with gratitude without grasping. Over time, this discipline frees you from subtle chains. No more waking with bitterness because a dream was cruel. No more spending the day longing for a dream too sweet to keep. You learn to meet both with the same calm spirit, welcoming them as visitors, but never making them masters. This freedom extends beyond sleep. It seeps into how you meet every fleeting impression, welcoming, releasing, moving forward. Thus the night, once a stage for hidden fears and longings, becomes another field of Stoic practice. Dreams lose their tyranny. The soul, trained in equanimity, rests regardless of what shadows pass across the mind. When you wake, you carry the strength of knowing you are free from illusion, steady in truth, unshaken by phantoms. And this strength prepares you to meet the real world with the same calm clarity. Non-attachment to dreams teaches the mind to release illusions, refusing to be chained by shadows of sweetness or fear. Yet even when freed from those passing images, the mind does not rest easily. Another enemy rises in the silence of night. Worry. The endless stream of what-ifs spins forward into imagined disasters, each one heavier than the last. Left unchecked, worry is corrosive, stealing sleep, poisoning peace, and weakening courage. But the Stoics offered a way to turn this restless energy into strength. They transformed worry into premeditation, shifting rumination into rational preparation. By rehearsing calmly what may come, you trade panic for readiness and fear for steadiness. The difference between rumination and premeditation is intention. Rumination circles endlessly, feeding on itself, amplifying dread without resolution. Premeditation, by contrast, confronts possible misfortunes directly and calmly asks, if this happens, how will I meet it? Instead of avoiding the thought, you face it. Instead of letting it spiral, you guide it. Worry becomes training. It is the same mental energy, but disciplined, structured, and harnessed for wisdom rather than chaos. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to expect insult, betrayal, illness, and even death. This was not pessimism, but preparation. By rehearsing these possibilities in advance, he weakened their sting. When they arrived, he was not surprised or shattered. He had already met them in thought, already practiced his response. This is premeditation, not wishing for misfortune, but training the soul so that when misfortune comes, It does not break you. At night, this practice is especially powerful. The quiet hours are when worries rise most sharply, when the mind invents futures darker than reality. Instead of resisting, you meet them head-on. You ask, "What if tomorrow brings failure?" Then you answer, "I will act with courage, and even failure cannot take virtue from me." What if tomorrow brings loss? I will grieve, but I will endure, and gratitude will remain. What if illness comes? The body may weaken, but the soul can remain strong. Each what if becomes an exercise, each worry transformed into preparation. This practice has immediate benefits. Worry loses its poison when brought into the light of reason. Fear thrives in vagueness, in shadow. When you give form to the fear and calmly consider it, its power dissolves. You realize that most worries are survivable, many are unlikely, and none can touch your inner freedom without your consent. By turning worry into premeditation, you end the cycle of helplessness and replace it with clarity. There is also courage in this exercise. Facing possible misfortune directly requires bravery. Many avoid such thoughts, believing they are too heavy. But avoidance only magnifies fear. Premeditation proves the opposite. The more you face hardship in thought, the less power it has in reality. Seneca advised rehearsing poverty, loss and death in the mind, so that when life presented them, they arrived as familiar, not as shocking strangers. Nightly premeditation cultivates this courage, teaching you that nothing the world brings is beyond endurance. This practice also builds resilience. By training in adversity each night, you prepare for disruption each day. You become less fragile, less dependent on smooth fortune. When plans fail, you do not collapse. When insults sting, you are not destroyed. You have already rehearsed these scenarios, and rehearsal breeds readiness. Just as an athlete strengthens muscles by practicing under strain, the soul strengthens by premeditating hardship. Modern psychology affirms this ancient practice. Research on stress inoculation shows that mentally rehearsing challenges improves actual performance under pressure. Exposure to imagined adversity reduces shock when real adversity comes. The Stoics, without science, discovered the same principle. You can train the mind for resilience by calmly facing feared outcomes in thought. What feels like worry is simply energy misdirected. Premeditation redirects it to growth. Premeditation also cultivates gratitude. When you consider what could go wrong, you appreciate more deeply what has not. Reflecting that you could lose health makes you value the strength you have tonight. Considering that you could lose loved ones makes their presence sweeter. The exercise does not darken the heart, but brightens it, for it sharpens awareness of blessings that are too easily overlooked. Worry turned to gratitude becomes nourishment instead of poison. There is also wisdom in distinguishing what is within control from what is not. Worry often blurs this line, treating everything as your responsibility. Premeditation clarifies it. When you think calmly about possible misfortune, you separate response from event. You cannot control illness arriving, but you can control how you meet it. You cannot control betrayal, but you can control your dignity in its aftermath. This clarity ends the chaos of helplessness. You see where power lies and prepare to use it. To practice this nightly, you need not dwell on every fear. Choose one or two that press most strongly. Write them down if you wish, then ask, if this happens, how will I live with virtue? What resources of courage, patience, or wisdom will I call upon? By doing this, you rehearse the best version of yourself, You picture not only the misfortune, but also the noble response. This strengthens identity. You stop defining yourself by fear of events and begin defining yourself by capacity for response. There is humility in this practice as well. Premeditation admits that you are not exempt from the common blows of fortune. Illness, loss, insult, failure, these come to all. By accepting them as possibilities, you drop the illusion that life owes you ease. Humility replaces entitlement, and peace follows humility. You no longer feel wronged by adversity because you expected it, trained for it, and met it with calm. Another fruit of premeditation is clarity of values. When you ask yourself how you will meet hardship, you must decide what matters most. If illness comes, will you cling to vanity or to dignity? If loss comes, will you chase possessions or cherish relationships? If failure comes, will you hide in shame or stand in honesty? These questions sharpen values. The night becomes a teacher, guiding you to live with purpose, even in the face of uncertainty. Over time, this practice transforms worry from torment into ally. The very thoughts that once stole your peace become fuel for resilience. The mind, instead of circling aimlessly, moves forward with purpose. Worry ceases to be a thief of rest and becomes training for life. You fall asleep, not haunted by shadows, but strengthened by preparation, ready for whatever dawn may bring. Thus, the night becomes not only rest for the body, but rehearsal for the soul. Each worry faced with reason becomes one less chain of fear. Each premeditation practiced becomes one more layer of strength. And when fortune does test you, as it surely will, you will not be undone. You will recognize the trial as one you have already met in thought, and you will rise to meet it with calm. This is the Stoic art of turning worry into preparation, of transforming what-ifs into training, of reclaiming the night for peace rather than panic. Transforming worry into premeditation teaches the mind to meet what-ifs with preparation instead of panic. But the Stoics did not stop with reasoning through their own possible futures. They also reached backward, drawing on the strength of those who had already endured what we fear. Recollection was one of their most trusted tools, for memory holds not only personal experiences, but also the examples of those who walked before us. When the night presses with stress, recalling the endurance of great philosophers and wise figures becomes a source of reassurance. It reminds you that you are not alone in hardship, and that others, facing trials far heavier, found ways to remain calm, just, and courageous. Recollection is more than remembering facts. It is calling to mind living examples that anchor the soul. Marcus Aurelius constantly invoked the images of his teachers and predecessors, reminding himself of their patience, moderation, and dignity. Seneca urged his students to keep the likeness of great men before their minds, as if they were present, serving as silent guides. Epictetus, born into slavery and later crippled, taught his followers to recall the trials of Socrates, who drank poison without fear, or Diogenes, who lived in poverty with freedom of spirit. These memories were not history lessons, but medicine, meant to steady the heart in the present. When stress rises at night, the mind feels isolated, as if no one has borne such weight before. Recollection shatters this illusion. You remind yourself, Seneca faced exile and death with calm. Marcus Aurelius governed through plague and war while reflecting nightly on virtue. Epictetus lived with poverty and pain, yet taught joy in what could not be taken. Their lives testify that hardship is survivable, and more than that, it can be transformed into growth. This memory steadies your own restlessness, showing that what feels unbearable is in truth endurable. The practice is simple yet profound. As you lie down, call to mind a figure you admire. Recall not only their wisdom, but their trials. Socrates questioned boldly until condemned, yet refused to abandon truth. Cato resisted tyranny, though it cost him his life. These were not men untouched by adversity, but men defined by how they met it. Their stories become companions in the night, whispering that strength is possible even in the darkest hours. Recollection also clarifies the standard of virtue. Left alone with stress, you may excuse weakness, telling yourself that anger or despair are justified. But when you recall how others endured far worse with dignity, excuses vanish. If Epictetus could teach freedom while bound by chains, surely you can face a restless night without surrender. Memory holds you accountable, reminding you of what is possible for the human spirit. This practice has psychological weight. Modern research shows that recalling role models increases resilience and reduces stress. Memory of admired figures activates the same brain regions involved in self-regulation, giving strength in moments of weakness. The Stoics practiced this long before neuroscience confirmed it. They knew the mind draws courage from example, that memory can reshape emotion as powerfully as logic. Recollection also fosters gratitude. When you remember the hardships others endured, poverty, persecution, illness, exile, you see your own troubles in perspective. What weighs heavily tonight may be light compared to what they carried. This perspective does not trivialize your pain, but shrinks its dominance. Gratitude grows when you realize you are not asked to endure what many before you bore with calm. There is humility in this practice. To recall great philosophers is to remember that wisdom does not exempt anyone from suffering. Even the most virtuous face trials. This dissolves the illusion that adversity is punishment or unfair. Hardship is part of the human condition, shared by all. Memory of this truth brings acceptance, softening resistance and making rest easier. Recollection can be personalized. Beyond ancient figures, you can recall mentors, family members, or friends who endured with dignity. Perhaps a grandparent who faced poverty with grace, a teacher who stood firm in difficulty, a friend who bore illness with courage. These memories carry equal power. They root strength in lived reality, reminding you that resilience is not abstract, but embodied in people you have known. This practice also combats loneliness. Stress at night often feels magnified because you feel alone with it. But when you call to mind a gallery of those who endured before you, you are surrounded by companions. Marcus Aurelius urged himself to act as if the great minds of history watched him, and in doing so, he felt guided by their presence. Recollection brings invisible fellowship, a community of strength across time. The discipline also shapes character through imitation. What you recall often becomes what you resemble. By filling memory with examples of patience, courage, and justice, you train your own soul to follow them. Over time, you begin to respond as they did, not because you force it in the moment, but because memory has already laid the pattern. Nightly recollection becomes daily transformation. To practice, you might keep a short list of figures you admire. Each night, recall one. Think of their hardship and how they responded. Hold the image clearly, not with idolization, but with honest recognition of their humanity. Say to yourself, if they could endure, so can I. If they could remain calm, I can attempt the same. This does not erase your stress, but reframes it. You see it not as a crushing weight, but as an opportunity to join the lineage of those who endured. Over time, recollection reshapes even your view of stress itself. Instead of asking, "Why me?" you ask, "How can I meet this as they did?" Stress becomes not a sentence, but a summons, a chance to practice what you admire in others. This shift gives dignity to difficulty. You are no longer crushed by hardship, but lifted by the thought of standing in the same stream as those before you. Thus, the night ceases to be a place of isolation and dread. It becomes a hall of memory, filled with figures who light the way. Each recollection strengthens patience, steadies courage, and softens fear. You rest not in forgetfulness, but in remembrance, the remembrance that others have endured, that you are not alone, and that the same strength lies within you. And from this remembrance, peace grows, carrying you into sleep with calm assurance that hardship is not defeat, but training, and that the soul, like those before you, can remain unbroken. Recollection transforms restless nights into moments of companionship with the wise who came before, reminding the soul that endurance is not only possible, but has been proven across centuries. Yet memory, though powerful, is not the only anchor. The Stoics taught that beyond recalling examples, you must root yourself in the living principle that orders all things. The logos, the rational harmony of nature. To treat the bed not as a casual place of collapse, but as a sacred space to align thought with this order is to elevate nightly rest into philosophy in action. The bedroom becomes more than four walls. It becomes a temple of reason where the mind is trained toward clarity and calmness. The power of this idea lies in intention. Most treat the bed as a dumping ground, a place to collapse after exhaustion, bringing with them the noise of the day, unfinished arguments, glowing screens, unexamined worries. But to approach it as a sacred space shifts the entire experience. You enter with reverence, not for the furniture, but for the practice it represents. Just as temples remind worshippers to lift their thoughts higher, so the bed, approached with discipline, reminds you to lift your mind from chaos to order. Marcus Aurelius often wrote that life is guided by reason, that every act should align with nature's rational design. Nighttime provides a unique opportunity to embody this. When you lie down, you are not merely ending the day. You are entering a space to return to harmony. The body rests, yes, but the soul also resets, clearing itself of irrational impulses, aligning again with logos. This conscious reframing prevents sleep from being wasted unconsciousness. It becomes part of the larger rhythm of philosophical training. Treating the bed as a temple also disciplines conduct. In sacred spaces, behavior changes, voices lower, distractions fade, reverence replaces carelessness. The same can shape the bedroom. You exclude trivialities that disrupt peace. You refrain from indulgences that cloud clarity. You replace them with rituals that cultivate calm, quiet reflection, ordered breathing, or thoughtful reading. These acts are not superstition, but discipline. They signal to the mind that here, reason governs, not impulse. This view also protects against self-deception. Many at night fill the mind with fantasy, resentment, or craving, feeding irrationality. But in a temple of logos, such thoughts are treated as intrusions. You notice them, recognize their irrationality, and release them. The space itself becomes training in discernment, a nightly exercise in distinguishing what is aligned with reason from what is not. Each evening, you sharpen judgment, keeping the soul from being enslaved by unworthy impulses. The practice builds consistency. By entering the bedroom with the same mindset each night, you create a rhythm of order. The very act of crossing the threshold becomes a reminder. Here I align with reason. Here I quiet myself. Here I return to harmony. Over time, this conditioning steadies the mind. Anxiety, which once surged in the dark, is calmed by the association of the space with clarity. The room ceases to be a battlefield of worries and becomes a sanctuary of peace. Modern psychology echoes this. Sleep experts teach that the bedroom should be reserved for rest and calm to condition the brain. What the Stoics framed philosophically, treating the bed as sacred, science frames as practical. Both reach the same conclusion. Respect the space, and the mind responds with tranquility. Logos, the rational order, is not an abstract principle, but a practical guide, shaping habits that support well-being. This discipline also deepens humility. To treat the bed as a temple is to acknowledge dependence on nature's rhythm. You cannot command sleep, only prepare for it. The temple mindset teaches reverence for forces beyond your will. You honor the Logos not by controlling it, but by aligning with it, trusting its rhythm to restore body and soul. This humility frees you from frustration, for you no longer treat rest as entitlement, but as gift. The temple metaphor also emphasizes purity of thought. Just as sacred spaces are cleansed before use, so the mind must be cleared before rest. Review your actions, release resentments, calm your breath. Each step is a cleansing, sweeping away disorder so that reason may dwell within. This cleansing prevents restless nights, for the soul no longer carries unexamined turmoil into sleep. Treating the bed as sacred also connects you to the vast order of nature. In the temple of Logos, you remember that your rest is not isolation, but participation. As you sleep, the world continues in harmony. Tides rise, stars move, earth spins. You are part of this rhythm, not separate. Recognizing this fosters peace, for it dissolves the illusion that you must hold everything together. Logos holds it. You simply align and rest. The practice can be enriched with specific nightly rituals. Before lying down, reflect briefly. Did I act with reason today? Where did I let impulse rule? Where can I align more tomorrow? These questions are offerings in the temple, tokens of sincerity. Then release them, trusting that you have done your part. Such ritual prepares the mind not with superstition, but with order, placing the soul in harmony with itself. Over time, the bedroom ceases to be an ordinary space. It becomes charged with meaning, a reminder of discipline, a training ground for reason, a sanctuary for the restless soul. To treat the bed as a temple is to weave philosophy into the very fabric of daily life, ensuring that even sleep becomes part of the Stoic path. And so, when you close your eyes, you do not collapse into unconsciousness, but enter the sacred rhythm of alignment. You rest not only in body, but in reason, not only in softness, but in clarity. The temple of Logos guards your peace, and from that peace you rise each morning with renewed strength, ready once more to live in harmony with the order of nature. Treating the bed as a temple of Logos sanctifies the space, aligning thought with reason and preparing the soul for calmness. Yet even within such a sacred frame, another subtle weight presses heavily on many minds: the burden of identity. Roles carried during the day, parent, worker, leader, provider, teacher, cling to the soul long into the night, making it difficult to rest. These identities, though useful by day, are not permanent truths. They are garments worn for function, not the essence of who you are. The Stoics knew the importance of remembering impermanence, not only in possessions and fortune, but also in roles. Night offers a chance to lay them aside, to return to the simplicity of being human, stripped of titles and expectations. When you enter sleep, no role follows you. Dreams do not care for your status, your position, your power. Illness, aging, and death, those great equalizers, remind us that beneath every title, we are the same fragile beings of flesh and breath. To practice ephemeral identity at night is to train in humility. It is to whisper to yourself, "Today I was a parent, a leader, a worker, but tonight I am simply human. Tomorrow I may take up these roles again, but they do not define me forever." This reminder cuts the chains of performance and allows genuine rest. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself that emperor was only a role, that soon even his name would be forgotten. His identity, like all others, was temporary, dissolved by time. At night, you can practice the same reflection. Whatever you carried in the day, authority, responsibility, expectation, can be released. You lie down not as a role, but as a person. This release is not neglect, but balance, for without laying down roles, the weight of them becomes unbearable. This practice guards against pride. Roles often inflate the ego. A leader begins to think themselves more important than those they guide. A worker may tie self-worth entirely to performance. A parent may cling too tightly to authority. But when you remind yourself nightly that all roles dissolve, pride shrinks. You see clearly, I am human first, and my roles are borrowed. They may vanish through change, misfortune, or death, but my humanity endures. It also guards against despair. Many suffer when a role is lost. Retirement takes away career, children growing up shifts identity, failure removes titles. Those who cling too tightly are crushed. But nightly practice of ephemeral identity prepares you for such change. Each night you rehearse letting go, so when the day comes, when a role truly ends, you are not broken. You have practiced release already. This discipline also restores equality. Roles divide people during the day, boss and employee, teacher and student, parent and child. But at night, all lie down alike, stripped of position. To remind yourself of this dissolves arrogance and envy alike. It softens judgment and strengthens compassion. You rest aware that all humans share the same fragile condition, no matter what titles they carry in the daylight. Modern psychology reflects this truth. Identity fusion, where self is tied completely to role, creates fragility. People struggle deeply when roles shift or are taken away. Practices of detachment, of seeing identity as fluid, reduce stress and improve resilience. The Stoics practice this naturally, reminding themselves that the self is not the same as function. Nightly reflection on ephemeral identity inoculates against the collapse of self when roles inevitably change. To practice, you might review your day briefly and then say, "Today I acted as a worker, but tonight I set it down. Today I acted as a parent, but tonight I am simply human. Today I held authority, but tonight I release it." This ritual loosens the mind from clinging. The bed becomes not only a temple of reason, but also a place of liberation from masks. This release allows deeper rest. Much of insomnia stems from replaying duties, unfinished tasks, unresolved problems, unspoken words. By practicing ephemeral identity, you remind yourself, these belong to my role, not to my essence. Tonight, I set them aside. They will be taken up again if needed tomorrow. But for now, I am free. This freedom brings calm, and calm invites sleep. There is also gratitude hidden in this practice. By reminding yourself that roles dissolve, you appreciate them more while you have them. Parenthood, leadership, service, these are not eternal. They are fleeting. Awareness of this makes them sweeter. You cherish them by day because you rehearse their impermanence by night. Gratitude flows from recognition of transience. Over time, this discipline reshapes identity itself. You no longer define yourself solely by what you do. You root your self-worth not in titles but in virtues: justice, courage, wisdom, moderation. These endure even when roles shift. A parent may lose authority, a worker may retire, a leader may be forgotten, but virtue remains. Nightly rehearsal of ephemeral identity anchors you in what cannot be taken. Thus, the night becomes a great equalizer, dissolving the illusions of permanence. You rest not as parent, worker, or leader, but as human, fragile, temporary, yet capable of wisdom and peace. This reminder strengthens humility, resilience, compassion, and gratitude. Each night you rehearse release, and each morning you rise lighter, less bound to masks, more rooted in truth. By practicing ephemeral identity, you live each day with freedom. You play your roles with sincerity, but you do not confuse them with essence. You meet their responsibilities with care, but you do not let them own you. And when you lie down at night, you return to simplicity, preparing the soul for sleep, and ultimately for the great surrender that awaits all, the return to being only human. You've just traveled through a night of philosophy where every lesson, awareness, slowness, perspective, forgiveness, courage, gratitude, kinship, moderation, and surrender has guided you closer to peace. You've learned that the bed is not an escape, but a training ground, that sleeplessness can be a teacher, that adversity is a gift, and that every role, every worry, every dream dissolves into something deeper, the freedom of your own soul. These Stoic practices, when carried into the silence of night, do more than bring rest. They build resilience, clarity, and unshakable calm that follow you into the day. If these lessons spoke to you, I'd love to hear which one touched you most. Was it the art of surrender, the discipline of gratitude, or the reminder of our shared human struggle? Share your thoughts below. I read every comment, and your reflection might be the spark someone else needs tonight. And if you want more journeys like this, more wisdom to guide both your nights and your days, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. That way, the next time we explore timeless lessons together, you'll be right here with us. Sleep peacefully, live wisely, and never forget, peace is built within.